Welcome! I'm truly grateful to have you here. Please, make yourself comfortable and take your time. This story was crafted with care, dedication, and deep respect for your attention. I hope it brings you joy, reflection, and perhaps even a touch of nostalgia. Once again, thank you for sharing a moment of your day with me. It is the 1st century, in the sun-baked lands of Galilee. You are here. The first undeniable truth you encounter isn't a sound or a sight, but a taste. A persistent, fine grit on your tongue, a dry mineral coating that subtly defines every breath, every swallow. It's not just dirt, it's the very essence of this ancient earth, pulverized by relentless sun and countless footsteps, now woven into your very being. You taste the land's enduring memory, its silent witness to generations, a forgotten part of its story. This isn't just discomfort. It's a communion, a whisper of the profound, persistent presence that settled on every life lived here. You feel it everywhere. It clings to the rough fabric of your tunic, making it slightly abrasive against your skin. When you run your fingers through your hair, a fine, reddish powder drifts down, catching the light. Your lips feel perpetually parched, and a subconscious lick only stirs the sandy film, leaving a faint, earthy tang. It collects in the corners of your eyes, making them feel weary, even heavy, blurring the sharp edges of your vision with a hazy ochre filter. This dust isn't an intruder. It's an inescapable companion, a silent, pervasive truth about daily existence. As you step along the unpaved paths, your worn sandals disturb miniature clouds with each movement. They rise like whispered secrets, swirl around your ankles, then drift upwards, shimmering in the merciless sunlight before slowly, inevitably, settling back onto everything. You watch a solitary donkey pass, its dark hide coated in a uniform layer of fine, pale earth, its slow, rhythmic steps raising continuous, small puffs. The air itself seems to shimmer with these suspended particles, creating an ethereal, almost melancholic haze that softens the distant hills and olive groves. You see the people. Their faces, weathered by the sun, bear the subtle sheen of dried sweat and dust, their expressions often etched with a quiet, patient endurance. A woman, bent over a small, withered garden patch, pauses to clear her throat, a dry, rasping cough escaping her. Then she wipes her mouth with the back of a hand that is itself caked with soil. This isn't a crisis, no dramatic storm, but a constant, grinding reality, a quiet challenge to every breath, every act of sustenance. The subtle grit even finds its way into the humble meals. You bite into a piece of unleavened bread, warm from the hearth, and beneath the flavor of grain, there's that faint, unavoidable mineral echo. It's the taste of generations, of relentless labor, of a quiet, unsung resilience. The dust becomes a symbol of the forgotten truths of this land, of lives lived not in grand pronouncements, but in constant physical engagement with a demanding, beautiful, and often sorrowful world. It's a silent, humble testament to what it means to truly be here. If this story resonates with you, please like and subscribe. I'm curious, where in the world are you listening from, and what time is it there? Share in the comments. It's remarkable, isn't it? How the smallest, most common element, a mere grain of dust, can hold within it the weight of an entire world, speaking volumes about the human condition, the quiet burdens, and the enduring spirit that breathes life into the very earth beneath our feet. The dry rasp in your throat is a constant companion, a dull, persistent ache that vibrates with every breath. It's not just a passing dryness. It's a profound, unyielding thirst, a deep, primal yearning that seems to have rooted itself in your very core. Your tongue feels thick, almost swollen, a piece of rough, dry leather against the roof of your mouth, and your lips are cracked, perpetually chapped, the slightest movement sending a faint, stinging sensation through them. You try to swallow, but it's an effort, a scrape against a parched, constricted passage, offering no relief, only a momentary, futile attempt. The relentless Galilean sun, a white-hot orb in the pale sky, saps the moisture from everything, and you feel it draining from your own body with an almost visible intensity. Sweat breaks out on your brow, a fleeting coolness that quickly turns warm, then evaporates, leaving behind a fine, salty film that makes your skin feel tight and itchy. Your clothes, already rough, now cling uncomfortably, damp in patches, bone-dry and scratchy in others. Every pore seems to cry out for water, an internal furnace burning steadily, demanding constant replenishment. You watch as a young boy, no older than 7 or 8, carries a small, heavy clay jar from a distant well, his tiny frame struggling with the weight. His steps are slow, deliberate, his eyes fixed on the ground, a profound concentration etched on his dust-streaked face. You see the longing in his gaze, the preciousness of each drop, a silent understanding of the immense value of that cool liquid. He doesn't run, doesn't waste a single drop. Every movement is an act of careful preservation. The air itself seems to amplify your thirst. It's thin, hot, and dry, carrying the scent of parched earth and distant, shimmering heat. You can almost taste the dust in it, that ever-present mineral grit, which only exacerbates the dryness in your mouth. You see a well, a communal gathering place, and a small crowd huddled around it, patiently waiting their turn. There's no pushing, no hurried impatience, only a quiet, almost reverent anticipation, a shared understanding of this fundamental need that binds them all. When you finally manage to take a sip from your own meager supply, the water is warm, slightly clouded with disturbed sediment, yet it is a profound, almost spiritual relief. You feel it tracing a path down your throat, a momentary balm that awakens a deep, aching awareness of how truly parched you were. It quenches the physical fire, but for a moment it also whispers of another thirst, a deeper, less tangible longing that seems to resonate with the very dryness of the land itself. It's a thirst for something more than sustenance, for something that feels just out of reach, a truth whispered by the scorching winds and the enduring, unyielding earth. The very air itself seems to burst, then vibrate as you step into the clamorous heart of the Capernaum souk. It's a physical force, a tidal wave of sound that crashes over you, stealing the quiet from your ears and filling every empty space. Sharp, insistent cries of vendors, rising and falling like a chaotic chorus, intertwine with the bleating of tethered goats, the frantic squawking of caged chickens, and the rhythmic, guttural barks of street dogs. The distant, dull thud of a carpenter's hammer, the metallic clang of a smith, the incessant buzz of flies, all dissolve into an overwhelming, continuous roar, a living, breathing entity that swallows individual thoughts, demanding your full, unyielding attention. Your nostrils are immediately assaulted by a dense, intoxicating tapestry of competing aromas. You catch the sweet, earthy scent of ripe figs, bruised and sticky, mingled with the sharp, briny tang of freshly caught fish, still gleaming wet on rough wooden planks. The pungency of dried herbs, coriander and cumin, from open sacks, mixes with the warm, yeasty perfume of bread, hot from a clay oven. Yet, beneath it all, a harsher layer, the scent of sweat, of unwashed bodies, of animal dung, and something metallic, almost primal, that hints at the raw, unvarnished struggle for existence. It's a visceral, sometimes dizzying assault that leaves no sense untouched, no corner of your mind undisturbed. You are swept along by the relentless current of bodies, a river of humanity flowing between makeshift stalls and permanent stone shops. You feel the constant jostle, the brush of rough tunics against your arm, the accidental nudge from a passing shoulder. You find yourself adjusting your stride to the erratic pace, dodging a child who darts through the crowd, then stepping aside for a man with a towering, precarious stack of pottery. The ground beneath your sandals is uneven, a mix of packed earth, discarded fruit skins, and spilled grain, creating a subtle stickiness in places, a constant reminder of the chaos underfoot. Your eyes dart, trying to anchor themselves in the swirling movement. Brightly colored cloths hang like banners, fluttering in the disturbed air. Piles of gleaming copper pots reflect the harsh sunlight, momentarily blinding you. You see a merchant, his face animated, gesturing wildly as he haggles over a small bag of grain, the tension of the transaction palpable even without words. Faces around you are a kaleidoscope of expressions: focused concentration, weary patience, a sudden, sharp burst of laughter, quick calculation, and the deep, quiet determination of daily survival. In this relentless clamor, you find yourself searching for a moment of quiet, a space where reflection might bloom, but it feels utterly impossible. The sheer density of sound and sensation creates a peculiar kind of spiritual silence, not the peace of quietude, but an enforced blankness, a deafening absence of introspection. The constant demand of the external world drowns out any inner whisper, any gentle stir of the spirit. It makes you wonder how one might hear the divine, how one might find the deeper truth amidst such an overwhelming, insistent clamor. The market is not merely a place of commerce. It is a crucible where the spirit struggles to breathe, where the forgotten truths of stillness are buried beneath a mountain of sound and urgent need, leaving you breathless and strangely hollowed by its relentless, vibrant hum. The lingering echo of the market's ceaseless clamor still vibrates behind your eyes, a phantom roar that refuses to fully dissipate even as you push your way out of its churning heart. You feel the physical release, a subtle lessening of the oppressive weight of sound and pressing bodies. The air, which moments ago felt dense and suffocating with 1,000 competing smells, now seems to thin out, allowing individual scents to emerge. The distant, sweeter aroma of blooming oleander, the faint, dry smell of sun-baked stone, a cleaner, almost ethereal freshness. You find yourself drawn down a narrower, quieter alley. The tall, pale stone walls of the houses on either side, casting welcome, cool shadows. The ground beneath your sandals changes from the chaotic, littered earth of the souk to smoother, more settled cobblestones, worn slick by centuries of feet. Each step feels less urgent, less constrained, as if your very gait is exhaling a long-held breath. The subtle drop in temperature is immediate, a soothing balm on your sweat-damp skin, raising goosebumps that are quickly soothed by the quiet. The cacophony doesn't vanish entirely, of course. It recedes, becomes a muffled, distant hum, Like the sea heard from far inland, you can still perceive the echoes of vendors, cries, the bray of a donkey, the collective murmur of the crowd. But now they are muted, softened, no longer demanding your immediate frantic attention. Instead, a new, delicate layer of sound emerges, the quiet rustle of leaves in a small, enclosed courtyard, the gentle cooing of a dove from a high perch, the soft, rhythmic sweep of a broom against stone. These are the sounds of solitude, of undisturbed moments. You see a woman sitting quietly in the shade of a small fig tree, her hands methodically sifting grain in a wide, shallow basket, a gentle, rhythmic whisper of falling seeds. Her gaze is distant, unhurried, lost in a private, unburdened contemplation, her face a picture of serene focus. She doesn't seem to notice you, or perhaps she simply chooses not to. Her world shrunk to the quiet, meditative rhythm of her task. There's a subtle contrast in her stillness compared to the frenetic energy you've just escaped. You lean against a cool, rough stone wall, closing your eyes for a moment, letting the gentle quiet wash over you. The tension in your shoulders, which you hadn't even realized you were carrying, begins to ease. Your mind, too, tries to slow its frantic pace, to untangle the jumbled thoughts and urgent sensations that the market had impressed upon it. It's a difficult, almost physical process, like trying to untie a tightly wound knot. The silence isn't truly empty. It's filled with the faint, internal echoes of what you've just left, but also with a new, subtle sense of openness, a space for something else to emerge. This desperate search for silence isn't just about the absence of noise. It's a profound yearning for a different kind of presence, a space where the spirit can breathe, where the relentless demands of the world finally recede enough for deeper truths to whisper. It makes you wonder how crucial these stolen moments of quiet must have been for any soul-seeking connection, any heart-seeking solace, in a world so utterly devoid of true stillness. What unspoken wisdom could only be found in these rare, precious pockets of quiet, away from the demanding clamor? It's a silence that holds more than just calm. It holds possibility. A heavy, cloying scent descends upon you the moment you step into the crowded space, an assault on your senses that feels both physical and profoundly unsettling. It's not just the familiar dust or the sweat of many bodies under the Galilean sun. No, this is something more complex, a thick, almost suffocating blend. You catch the faint, sweet perfume of expensive oils, probably meant to mask, but beneath it, the unmistakable tang of stale perspiration, of unwashed skin and garments that have seen too many days without water. Then, a sharper, animalistic undertone, perhaps from sacrifices or simply the close proximity of people and their meager livestock, mingles with the faint, metallic scent of copper coins and old parchment. It's a pungent, almost fetid aroma, a testament to a kind of piety that prioritizes appearance over genuine cleanliness, a smell that speaks of an inner neglect trying to be hidden by outward display. You feel the air itself as a thick, oppressive blanket, warm and devoid of any refreshing movement. It presses in on you, making your breath feel shallow, each inhale tasting faintly of that same complex, unsettling odor. Your rough tunic, already clinging from the general heat, now feels heavier, absorbing the dense atmosphere around you. You find yourself instinctively wanting to step back, to find cleaner air, but the press of bodies makes any retreat impossible. The ground beneath your sandals is uneven, worn smooth in some places, sticky in others, a silent testimony to countless feet walking this very path, carrying similar burdens and similar scents. Your eyes, Trying to adjust to the dim light filtering through the narrow openings, scan the faces around you. Many wear expressions of intense devotion, their eyes uplifted, their hands clasped. You see their carefully arranged robes, perhaps their finest, but a closer look reveals the dust ingrained in the folds, the faint stains that no perfume can entirely conceal. A man beside you, his beard meticulously groomed, pronounces a prayer with exaggerated fervor, yet as he turns you catch the whiff of his unwashed breath, a stark contrast to his outward show of sanctity. It creates a jarring dissonance, a silent, unsettling question in your mind. The sounds, too, contribute to this unsettling atmosphere. There's a low, continuous murmur of prayers and solemn pronouncements, a rhythmic drone that fills the space. But beneath it you hear the shuffle of restless feet, the muffled coughs, the occasional sigh of discomfort. It's a chorus of humanity, but one that seems to carry a subtle undercurrent of weariness, of unspoken obligation, rather than pure, unadulterated joy. There's a spiritual silence here, not of peace, but of a deeper truth, struggling to emerge from beneath layers of performance and pretense, choked by the very air of false devotion. You find yourself observing a young woman, her face etched with a quiet, almost heartbreaking sincerity, as she tries to find a small space to kneel, her simple, clean dress a stark contrast to the surrounding grandeur and grime. Her eyes are closed, her lips moving silently, and for a fleeting moment you catch a scent not of perfume or sweat, but of humble, genuine intention, a fragile purity amidst the overwhelming, heavy stench. It makes you wonder what truly counts in the eyes of the divine, what sacrifices are truly seen, and what, in this crowded, fragrant, yet fundamentally unclean space, is truly being forgotten. This isn't just a physical discomfort, it's a profound, spiritual provocation, raising questions about the true nature of holiness in a world so obsessed with its outward show. A thick, bewildering scent envelops you the moment you step into this sacred space, an immediate assault on your senses. It's a profound paradox held within the air itself. You discern the sweet, pungent perfume of frankincense and other precious spices, rising in plumes from unseen altars, mingling with the earthy, metallic tang of recent blood sacrifice. Yet beneath this expected aroma of reverence, an undeniable countercurrent weaves its way through. The sour, acrid smell of sickness, of unwashed bodies, of festering wounds, and the faint, unsettling sweetness of decay. It's a smell that forces a stark truth upon you. Here, in the heart of devotion, holiness and human suffering breathe the same indistinguishable air. You feel the air itself, humid and heavy, pressing against your skin, making each breath a conscious effort. It's as if the very atmosphere has absorbed the prayers and the pains, holding them in a dense, tangible suspension. The cool, rough stone beneath your sandals is worn smooth in places, echoing the passage of countless feet. Some pilgrim, some pleading. You instinctively pull your tunic slightly higher, a subtle, almost unconscious gesture of self-preservation against the pervasive closeness, the mingling of breath and spirit, of faith and affliction. Your eyes, trying to adjust to the flickering light of distant oil lamps and candles, scan the figures huddled within the shadows. Some are cloaked in their finest, their faces upturned in fervent prayer, lips moving in silent supplication, eyes closed to the world. Yet, startlingly close, you see others. A man coughs, a deep, rattling sound that shudders through his frail frame, his skin pallid even in the dim light. A woman rocks gently, murmuring to a child whose limbs are twisted, whose breath is shallow, their silent plea a stark contrast to the reverent hushed tones around them. The raw reality of their suffering is unmasked, undeniable, existing side by side with profound devotion. The soundscape, too, tells this story of stark fusion. A low, continuous murmur of chanted prayers rises and falls, ancient and rhythmic, a current of belief flowing through the space. But woven into this sacred tapestry are the undeniable sounds of human vulnerability. A sharp, hacking cough that breaks the silence, a barely suppressed groan that escapes cracked lips, the shuffle of weak feet struggling to find purchase on the cold stone. These are not separate sounds, they are intertwined, creating a discordant symphony that challenges the very nature of purity and sanctuary. This place offers no easy answers, no simple divisions. It challenges your very notion of what is holy, what is pure, what is separated from the world. Here, the fragrant smoke ascends towards the heavens, carrying the most earnest prayers, while the undeniable stench of raw human suffering rises alongside it, a silent, persistent, and visceral plea. It's a forgotten truth that for many, holiness wasn't a pristine, isolated experience, but a desperate search within the very crucible of affliction, where the divine and the decaying often shared the same inescapable breath. What does it mean to encounter God when His presence is so thoroughly entwined with the tangible reality of human pain? What kind of reverence can truly thrive in such an unvarnished, demanding truth? A jarring, unnatural cadence intrudes upon the ancient rhythm of Galilee, a sound wholly alien to the soft scuff of sandals on dusty paths, or the gentle bleating of sheep. It's a precise, metallic thud, hollow and unyielding, repeated with chilling uniformity, the sound of hobnailed Roman boots striking newly laid cobblestones. You feel it vibrating through the very earth beneath your feet, a low, resonant tremor that speaks not of natural movement, but of imposed order, a haunting paradox in a land yearning for its own freedom. It's the sound of power walking, unasked, unyielding, through what was once sacred ground. You are moving through a narrow street in Capernaum, the familiar winding earth path abruptly giving way to these perfectly cut, dark gray stones. They feel cold, smooth, unnervingly regular under your worn sandals, utterly unlike the organic give of the soil. This new road cuts a straight, uncompromising line, designed for speed and control, a scar of foreign efficiency etched into the heart of the village. The air, usually thick with the scent of olive groves and baking bread, now carries a faint, sharp tang of iron and cured leather, a subtle, almost imperceptible reminder of their omnipresent vigilance. Then you see them, a small detachment of Roman legionaries, perhaps 8 strong, marching with a terrifying synchronized precision. Their polished bronze helmets glint like predatory eyes in the harsh sunlight, reflecting a cold, indifferent glare. The scarlet cloaks they wear are stark, violent slashes of color against the muted tones of the Galilean landscape, a visual assault. Each spear is held perfectly vertical, a rigid, unwavering line that seems to divide the world into ruler and ruled. Their faces are impassive, shadowed by their helmets, devoid of expression, making them seem less like men and more like instruments of an unfeeling, distant empire. A hush falls over the marketplace. Not a natural silence, but an immediate, almost instinctive suppression of sound, a collective intake of breath. The vibrant chatter, the haggling, the bleating of animals, all soften, recede, as if drawn into an invisible vortex of caution. You notice how the people around you subtly shift their weight, their shoulders hunching almost imperceptibly. Heads bow, eyes dart away from the soldiers, then fix quickly on the ground or on some mundane task, a practiced dance of deference and avoidance. A woman pulling water from a well pauses, her clay jar held steady, her gaze locked on the surface of the water, a silent prayer perhaps for invisibility. You feel a tightening in your own chest, a cold knot of unspoken tension. It's not just fear of individual harm, but a deeper, more pervasive unease, a constant, low thrum of being watched, of existing under a gaze that questions every movement, every quiet thought. This heavy quiet, this spiritual silence, hangs in the air long after the rhythmic thud of their boots fades into the distance. It raises a haunting question. In a land so thoroughly occupied, where even the stones beneath your feet are laid by a foreign hand, how does one truly find a space for the spirit to be free, to breathe, to truly commune with a God whose land is now so palpably controlled by another? What forgotten truths lie buried beneath the cadence of that Roman boot? A sharp, guttural command, barked in Latin, cracks through the usual hum of the market square like a whip. It's not just words. It's a sound laden with unchallengeable authority, a sound that makes you instinctively flinch, tightening the muscles in your neck. This isn't a request. It's an absolute declaration, demanding instant, total submission. The air, already thick with dust and the varied sense of commerce, suddenly feels charged, heavy with unspoken tension, every breath held. You are standing near a water trough, the warm, familiar scent of stagnant water and donkey dung, a stark contrast to the sudden chill of dread that washes over you. Your worn sandals are rooted to the rough, uneven cobblestones, unable to move, as your eyes are drawn by a horrifying, magnetic pull. A group of Roman auxiliary soldiers, their bronze helmets glinting menacingly, their scarlet cloaks a splash of cruel color against the drab stone, have cornered a local man. He is older, his frame thin, his face etched with years of sun and labor, and now a raw, visible terror. The next sound is a sharp, mocking laugh from one of the soldiers, a harsh, sneering bark that carries an open contempt, followed by the dull, sickening thud as a heavy, empty amphora is deliberately dropped and shattered at the old man's feet. Then comes the scrape of a Roman boot against the stones, a deliberate, slow movement, as the soldier nudges a broken shard even closer to the man's sandal. You perceive the unyielding pressure, the deliberate psychological torment, more keenly than any physical blow. A collective, barely audible gasp ripples through the scattered onlookers, immediately followed by a profound, stifling silence. The bustling market activity, only moments ago a cacophony of life, is utterly extinguished. Vendors stand frozen behind their stalls, their eyes downcast, their movements stilled. Children, instinctively sensing the palpable danger, press themselves against their parents' legs, their small hands clutching cloth, their faces hidden. No one speaks. No one moves. It's a silence born of terror, of powerlessness, a heavy blanket of humiliation, pressing down on every soul present. You feel your own breath catch in your throat, a dry, metallic taste of fear coating your tongue. Your hands clench, nails digging into your palms, a futile, silent protest. The sun, usually a source of life, now seems to illuminate only the stark, brutal reality of the scene, casting long, cruel shadows. You watch as the old man, his shoulders slumped, his gaze fixed on the broken pottery, slowly, painstakingly, begins to gather the fragments with trembling, calloused fingers, his movements heavy with shame. He doesn't look up, he doesn't resist. He simply submits to the crushing weight of public degradation. This isn't just an act of dominance, it's a profound spiritual assault. The air is thick with the unspoken anguish, the swallowed dignity, the quiet erosion of spirit that accompanies such public shaming. In this stifling quiet, the soul itself seems to shrink, to seek refuge within, leaving behind a hollowed space where hope once dwelled. It raises a haunting, aching question. What unseen wounds are carved into the spirit of a people day after day by the relentless, humiliating sounds of an occupying power, leaving a spiritual silence that even God himself might weep to witness? A different kind of oppression settles over you, not from an iron boot, but from the relentless, unyielding power of the natural world. It's the sun, not merely warm, but tyrannical, a searing weight pressing down on the crown of your head, burning through the thin fabric of your tunic, scorching every exposed inch of skin. You feel it immediately, a deep, pervasive heat that seems to bake you from the inside out, making your skin prickle, then stretch tight, almost screaming in protest. This isn't just weather, it's an elemental force, a forgotten truth about the raw physical reality of existence here. You feel the sweat breaking out on your forehead, a brief, deceptive coolness that quickly turns hot, then evaporates, leaving behind a fine, salty film that makes your skin itch, your eyelids sting. Your rough clothes, already heavy with dust, now cling uncomfortably, damp in some places, bone dry and scratchy in others. Each breath you take feels like inhaling hot, dry air, doing little to cool your parched throat. A profound, aching thirst settles deep in your mouth. A constant, nagging demand for relief. A silent yearning for even a single drop of coolness. The ground beneath your sandals radiates its own brutal heat, a furnace that penetrates the soles of your feet with every step. The stones, the packed earth, even the scattered, dry fragments of weeds, all seem to store and then violently release the sun's energy, creating an upward convection that makes the air around your ankles feel just as scorching as the air directly overhead. You find yourself instinctively shortening your strides, treading more lightly, trying to minimize contact with the searing surface, your feet an extension of a greater, suffering body. You squint against the blinding glare, the light so intense it makes your eyes ache and water, forcing you to narrow them to mere slits. The distant landscape shimmers and distorts. A hazy, almost dreamlike mirage dancing above the hills, blurring the sharp edges of olive trees and distant structures. Everything seems washed out, bleached by the overwhelming light, save for the deep, unwavering, almost cruel blue of the sky directly overhead. You find yourself automatically seeking out shadow, any sliver of respite beneath an overhang or a rare, gnarled tree, even if only for a few fleeting moments of reprieve. People around you move with a measured, almost languid pace, their movements economical, conserving every ounce of energy under these demanding conditions. You see a man slowly wiping his brow with the back of his wrist, his eyes half closed against the merciless light, his expression a testament to enduring weariness. A woman draws her shawl further over her head, creating a small, portable haven of shadow, a tiny act of resistance against the sun's dominion. There's a shared understanding in their weary, determined expressions, a silent acknowledgement of this constant, unyielding pressure. This tyrannical sun dictates the rhythm of life, forcing a slower, more deliberate existence, an undeniable physical and spiritual pressure that permeates every waking moment. It's a forgotten truth that a profound elemental force can be as oppressive as any human ruler, demanding tribute in sweat and labor, shaping the very nature of faith and resilience. What silent prayers rise from parched throats under such a sky? What unrecorded suffering is endured, day after relentless day, beneath the unblinking eye of a sun that knows no mercy? A brutal white-hot glare assaults your eyes, reflecting off every surface. The pale, baked earth, the sun-bleached stones, even the shimmering air itself. There is no respite, no cool, inviting darkness to offer even a fleeting moment of relief. You search, almost desperately with your eyes, for any patch of shadow, any sliver of shade cast by a rock, a building, a lone, gnarled olive tree. But the sun hangs directly overhead, a merciless eye in the vast, empty sky, pressing down with an unyielding intensity, illuminating a world utterly devoid of concealment. This is the forgotten truth. A landscape where the very concept of shade, of sanctuary from the overwhelming light, feels like a distant, unattainable dream. You feel the sun's relentless grip on your entire body, a physical weight that seems to grow heavier with each passing moment. Your skin prickles, then feels stretched and raw, as if constantly being held too close to an open flame. There's a persistent, dull ache behind your eyes, a consequence of squinting against the blinding light for hours on end, and your head throbs with a quiet, insistent rhythm. The sweat, which earlier seemed to offer some cooling, now feels futile, evaporating almost instantly, leaving behind a gritty, salty residue that tightens your pores and makes your clothes cling uncomfortably. Every exposed inch of you is a silent testament to this unending exposure, to this lack of relief. Your movements become slow, deliberate, as if wading through unseen resistance. You find yourself hunching your shoulders, subtly lowering your head. An instinctive, almost unconscious effort to shrink, to make yourself smaller against the immensity of the light and heat. People you pass move with the same weary, economical grace, their eyes often cast downwards, their faces etched with a patient endurance. You see a woman pull the edge of her shawl over her head, creating a momentary personal eclipse, a fragile, portable shadow that offers scant protection, but a vital psychological comfort. They are all, like you, living under the unblinking eye of a world without shade. The ground beneath your sandals radiates its own brutal heat, an updraft that makes the air shimmer and dance, blurring the already stark horizon. Even the faint breeze that sometimes stirs feels hot, dry, offering no coolness, only moving the suffocating heat from one part of your body to another. There's no escaping the constant visual and physical assault, no corner to retreat into, no quiet dark for reflection or reprieve. Every thought, every feeling, every prayer is forged in this crucible of unwavering light, this ceaseless, demanding exposure. This overwhelming lack of shade creates a profound spiritual challenge, a quiet crisis of endurance. How does one find the cool presence of God when there is no physical cool to be found? How does the spirit find quiet contemplation when the body is in constant subtle protest against the relentless, unyielding light? What kind of faith blossoms in a world where physical sanctuary is so rare, and vulnerability to the elements is an inescapable truth of existence? This isn't just about heat. It's about a world that offers no easy hiding place, no gentle obscuring, forcing every soul to stand fully exposed under a sky that never relents. It's a revelation about resilience, and about the deep, enduring yearning for even a momentary shadow. A sharp, metallic clanging shatters the ordinary hum of the Galilean afternoon, slicing through the air like a sudden, unexpected shard of ice. It's not the cheerful peal of a temple bell, nor the familiar clatter of a shepherd's flock. This is a singular, insistent, deeply unsettling sound, repeated with a chilling rhythm, the sharp, desperate cry of the leper's bell. You feel it in your bones, a visceral jolt that makes your breath catch in your throat, an ancient, primal fear seizing your heart. It's a sound that announces not presence but profound, inescapable absence, a living silence carved out by disease. You are walking a dusty path, the usual warmth of the sun suddenly feeling cold against your skin, replaced by a sudden, internal chill. Your muscles tense, an instinctive recoil, and your gaze snaps towards the source of the sound. The world around you seems to hold its breath. The quiet chatter of women drawing water ceases abruptly. A child, playing in the dirt, freezes mid-motion, his small, uplifted face now etched with bewilderment and a nascent fear, mirroring the sudden terror that ripples through the adults. A man, leading a donkey, quickly pulls his animal to the side, pressing himself against a stone wall, his eyes fixed, wide and desperate, on a point in the distance. Then you see them. A solitary figure, cloaked in tattered, rough-spun rags that hang loosely, almost indistinguishably, from a bowed frame. They walk with a shuffling, uncertain gait, their head lowered, their face obscured by shadow or perhaps by the very nature of their affliction. From their outstretched hand a small, dark bell swings with each agonizing step, its metallic cry, a constant, mournful echo of their isolation, a relentless proclamation of their cursed state. A faint, acrid scent, sickly sweet and profoundly disturbing, seems to drift on the hot air, an almost imperceptible breath of decay and neglect that precedes and follows them, making the air around them feel thick and unwelcome. As the leper moves, a clear, wide circle of empty space forms around them, a perfect, unnatural vacuum in the bustling landscape. People instinctively draw back, a collective, silent movement of profound fear and revulsion. They avert their gaze, not out of cruelty but out of a deeply ingrained, terrified understanding of contagion, of defilement, of a fate worse than death. No one speaks, no one approaches. The silence that surrounds the leper is not peaceful. It is heavy, suffocating, laden with unspoken fear and profound, heartbreaking loneliness. It's a silence that screams of absolute separation, a chasm that no human touch or comforting word dares to cross. You watch as the figure passes, the relentless, sharp chime of the bells slowly fading into the distance, leaving behind an even deeper, more profound quiet. The spiritual silence left in its wake is palpable, an aching void where human connection, and perhaps even divine comfort, once resided. This isn't just physical illness. It is an utter severance, a forced exile from community, from family, from the very presence of God in the assembly. What kind of prayer, what kind of faith can endure when the world, and even the divine, seems to demand such complete, horrifying abandonment? What forgotten truths about the human soul are revealed in the face of such profound, chilling isolation, marked only by the sharp, desperate cry of a bell? A cold, invisible wall separates you from the bustling life around you, an absolute barrier that no hand dares to breach. It's not just the chill of the morning air, but a deeper internal coldness that permeates your very bones, a profound lack of human warmth that no sun can reach. You feel the raw, aching absence of touch, the heavy silence where a comforting hand, a friendly bump, a shared embrace might have been. This is the terror of being untouchable, a silent, pervasive truth that hollows out the soul, a forgotten pain deeper than any physical wound. Every glance from a passerby is not an acknowledgement, but a confirmation of your invisible status. You see their eyes, not meeting yours, but darting away, or fixing on some distant point, carefully avoiding any trace of connection. Their bodies instinctively shift, creating a wide, unnatural berth around you, a moving circle of empty space that carries the weight of their fear and revulsion. You can almost feel the air growing colder, thinner, in that hollowed-out space that is uniquely yours, a permanent exile within the very fabric of human presence. Your own hands, once capable of labor, of offering solace, now feel alien, perpetually empty. You clench them, then relax them, feeling the rough texture of your own skin. But it's a self-touch, a lonely echo in the vast silence of isolation. A profound thirst for human contact gnaws at your spirit, a craving for a connection that is forbidden, dangerous, a fundamental human need rendered utterly unreachable. Each distant laugh, each murmur of conversation, each shared gesture between others becomes a sharp, subtle reminder of the vibrant, living world from which you are irrevocably cut off. You try to move, to blend, but every step feels heavy, each movement an announcement of your presence, and thus your absence. The ground beneath your sandals is the same dust, the same stone, yet it feels different, somehow colder, more unforgiving, as if even the earth itself shuns your touch. The familiar sense of the market, of baking bread, of spices, of human sweat, are distant, muted, as if perceived through a thick, heavy veil, unable to fully penetrate the desolation of your personal space. This isn't just physical isolation. It's a profound spiritual exile. How does one pray when the very act of joining a congregation is forbidden? How does one feel the warmth of God's love when every human vessel of that love is forced to retreat? The spiritual silence around you is absolute, a crushing weight that drowns out inner whispers, leaving only the echo of your own aching loneliness. What kind of faith, what kind of hope can truly survive when the world denies you even the simplest touch, the most basic form of human grace? It raises a haunting, agonizing question about the nature of mercy, of community, and of the forgotten depths of human suffering that can only be understood in the chilling terror of being utterly, irrevocably untouchable. The first thing you feel is the sheer, unyielding weight. The clay water jug, initially cool and smooth against your skin as you lift it, quickly becomes an extension of your body, heavy and demanding. You feel the water slosh within, a live, shifting burden that presses down on your shoulder, making your spine compress, forcing your entire frame to subtly adjust for balance. It's a silent, constant presence, A forgotten truth about the daily grind, the raw physical cost of life in this land. Your muscles, already weary from a long day under the Galilean sun, immediately protest. Your neck tenses, a dull ache blooming at the base of your skull. Your shoulder, now bearing the brunt of the load, begins to burn with a deep, persistent strain. You shift the jug slightly, trying to find a more comfortable position, but there's no true comfort, only different points of pressure. The coarse fabric of your tunic digs into your skin where the jug rests, a constant friction that will soon become a chafing soreness. Each breath feels more labored, less expansive, constrained by the effort. You begin the long walk back from the well, the dusty path familiar but now seeming endless. Each step is deliberate, rhythmic, a slow, insistent plod. The ground beneath your sandals is uneven, small stones and ruts threatening to disrupt your fragile balance, sending tiny jolts of strain up your legs and into your burdened back. You notice a small child ahead, perhaps 5 or 6 years old, also carrying a small, half-filled jug, its weight already bowing their tiny shoulders. Their concentration is absolute, a silent testament to the early burdens of existence here. The sun beats down with its usual relentless intensity, adding its own unseen weight to your already heavy load. Sweat beads on your brow, tracing paths down your temples, then your neck where it mingles with the effort of carrying the jug. The air, dry and laden with fine dust, feels thick, and each inhale is a reminder of the thirst that you are, paradoxically, carrying. The journey isn't just a physical act. It's a profound internal reckoning, a quiet negotiation with your own strength, a silent prayer for endurance. You pass an older woman, her face a roadmap of sun and labor, also returning from the well. Her jug, perfectly balanced on her head, seems almost an extension of her being. Her eyes meet yours for a fleeting moment, a silent acknowledgement, a shared understanding of this ubiquitous burden, this common thread of daily struggle. There's no need for words, only a knowing glance that speaks of countless journeys, of relentless effort, of the quiet dignity found in simply carrying on. As you finally approach your humble dwelling, your arm trembles slightly, your shoulder throbs with a deep, insistent ache. The relief as you carefully lower the jug to the ground is profound, a sudden, almost dizzying lightness that sweeps through your entire body. The spiritual silence of the journey, filled only with the internal rhythm of your struggle, now gives way to a quiet exhalation, a moment of profound, wordless gratitude. It's a revelation about the forgotten truths of what it truly means to live, to endure, and to find a sacredness not in grand gestures, but in the simple, aching weight of a water jug, carried day after demanding day, under the unforgiving yet beautiful Galilean sky. The cool, rounded surface of the clay jug presses firmly against your hip, a constant, familiar anchor that shapes your posture. It's heavy, surprisingly so, even half full, and with each rhythmic sway of your walk, its weight shifts, demanding a subtle adjustment of your entire body. You feel the deep, ingrained ache in your lower back, a quiet companion that has settled there over countless journeys to the well, a testament to the unseen, unyielding strength that is simply expected. This isn't just water, it's a silent, daily affirmation of a woman's unwavering role, a forgotten truth carved into the very lines of every woman's face in this land. Your bare feet, toughened by years, feel the fine dust of the path, warm and yielding beneath you. Each step is practiced, economical, a balance struck between the shifting weight of the jug, the uneven ground, and the need to conserve dwindling energy under the relentless sun. You pass other women, also making their way, their jugs balanced effortlessly on their heads, their hips, or clutched to their chests. Their faces, etched with the sun and the quiet struggles of life, meet yours with a brief, knowing glance. A shared acknowledgement of the unseen burdens, the quiet perseverance, a kinship born of necessity and unspoken understanding. There are no grand declarations, only the profound, silent recognition of a common lot. The sun beats down, relentless, as always. You feel the sweat prickling your scalp beneath your headscarf, running down your temples, mingling with the dust that clings to your skin. Your simple dress, already worn from countless washes, feels rough against your shoulder where the weight has pressed. Yet there's a dignity in the effort, a quiet pride in providing and sustaining. This isn't a choice. It's a fundamental rhythm of life, deeply ingrained, a spiritual duty performed in every aching muscle, every steady step. The air, thick with the scent of sun-baked earth and distant cooking fires, seems to carry the murmurs of these uncelebrated efforts, a low, persistent hum beneath the surface of daily life. You observe the men gathered in the village square, discussing matters, their hands gesturing, their voices rising and falling in argument or laughter. Their jugs, if they carry them at all, are for immediate thirst, not the daily tireless provisioning of a household. Their burden is different, perhaps more visible, more lauded. But yours is constant, foundational, often unseen, a quiet force that allows their world to turn. You feel the contrast, not with resentment, but with a deep, resigned understanding of the order of things, a truth rarely spoken, but lived with every breath. As you finally reach your humble dwelling, your arm trembles slightly as you carefully lower the jug to the ground, the splash of water a small, welcome sound. A momentary lightness sweeps through your body, a brief respite before the next task. In this profound spiritual silence, after the journey you realize the depth of strength that resides not in public pronouncements, but in the steadfast heart, in the enduring spirit that simply carries on, day after day, year after year. It raises a haunting, aching question. In a society that often overlooks or diminishes their contributions, what does a woman's quiet, unyielding strength truly signify in the eyes of the divine? And what forgotten lessons about true power lie within the steady, silent journey to the well, carried by the many unsung women of this land? A subtle, persistent torment begins almost imperceptibly, a faint prickle against your skin that grows, moment by moment, into an undeniable, widespread irritation. It's the coarse wool tunic, rough-spun and unyielding, clinging to your body in the Galilean heat. You feel the individual fibers, stiff and unyielding, constantly rubbing against your bare arms, your shoulders, your back, creating a relentless, maddening itch that no amount of shifting or subtle adjustment can truly alleviate. This isn't just discomfort. It's a constant, low-grade assault on your peace, a forgotten truth about the pervasive, unnoticed trials of everyday existence. You try to ignore it, to focus on the tasks at hand, but it's a shadow, an unwelcome companion that follows your every movement. When you walk, the fabric shifts and scrapes, aggravating the raw spots. When you stand still, the heat builds beneath the thick wool, making the itch burn with a new, insistent intensity. You find yourself making small, almost involuntary movements, A twitch of a shoulder, a subtle rub of your arm against your side, a subconscious attempt to scratch without drawing attention. The dust from the road, the fine grit that settles on everything, seems to embed itself within the wool, exacerbating the problem, creating a grittier, heavier friction. Your skin feels hot and dry beneath a thick, dark fabric, despite the sweat that beads on your forehead. The wool, designed for warmth in colder months, now traps the heat, creating a stifling microclimate against your body. You feel a flush spreading across your skin, a prickling sensation that crawls from your neck down your spine, demanding relief that never quite comes. The very texture of the fabric, when you glance down at it, looks unforgiving. Its rough, undyed threads, a stark visual reminder of the persistent irritation. It's a garment of necessity, a protection from the elements, but also a source of constant quiet tribulation. You observe others around you. An old man, bent over his craft, unconsciously reaches under his tunic to scratch his back with a gnarled hand, his expression a mixture of focus and subtle, underlying irritation. A woman, balancing a basket on her head, subtly rotates her shoulders, a slight movement to alleviate the constant rub. These are not dramatic gestures of pain, but the quiet, habitual concessions to a shared, pervasive discomfort, an unspoken understanding of the tyranny of coarse clothing in a hot, dusty land. Their faces, weathered and patient, reflect a life lived with such small, persistent trials. Even in moments of quiet contemplation, when you try to focus your mind, the incessant itch becomes a buzzing distraction, a physical anchor that pulls your thoughts away from deeper reflection. How can one truly find stillness, truly hear the gentle whispers of the divine, when the very cloth on your back is constantly demanding your attention, relentlessly chafing your skin, a silent, unyielding foe to inner peace? This simple tunic, a symbol of humility and everyday life, reveals a profound spiritual tension. It raises a haunting question. What unnoticed, physical burdens did those who walked this land carry, day in and day out, that might have shaped their patience, their prayers, and their very capacity to find solace in a world that offered so little physical ease, leaving a spiritual silence filled with quiet endurance? A dull, persistent thrum of irritation settles over your very being, a low-grade hum that you can feel under your skin, behind your eyes, in the very air you breathe. It's not one single agony, but 1,000 tiny, unyielding discomforts that conspire to steal your peace. You feel the fine grit of dust perpetually clinging to your sweat-damp skin, a constant, abrasive presence that makes your rough tunic feel even more scratchy. A fly, emboldened by the heat, buzzes insistently near your ear, then lands on your exposed arm. Its tiny, tickling feet, a maddening distraction you must constantly shoo away. This isn't just physical discomfort. It's a silent, persistent gnawing at your spirit, a forgotten truth about the insidious drain of constant, minor affliction. Your mouth feels perpetually dry, a sandy coating on your tongue, despite the sips of warm water you take, each one a temporary truce in the battle against thirst. Your lips are chapped, tiny cracks forming in the corners, stinging with every unconscious lick. The relentless sun, a brutal eye in the sky, warms your skin until it prickles, then sweats, then dries to a tight, itchy surface. You feel the grit in your hair, stiff and dull, no matter how many times you run your fingers through it, trying to dislodge the pervasive earth. Even your fingernails, if you examine them carry a faint line of ochre beneath their edges, a testament to the world's inescapable presence. You find yourself making small, almost unconscious movements. A shrug of the shoulders, a subtle shift of weight, a rub of your arm across your chest, a quiet sigh that barely escapes your lips. These aren't dramatic gestures of pain, but the habitual, almost automatic concessions to a world that offers little true ease. Your gaze, usually steady, now feels restless, darting from one small annoyance to the next, unable to find a single point of unburdened focus. The distant sounds of the marketplace, the bleating animals, the hawkers' cries, seem to merge into a single irritating drone, each note amplifying the quiet storm brewing within you. You observe others, and you see it reflected in them. A man, sitting cross-legged, meticulously mending a fishing net, unconsciously swats at a fly that lands on his cheek, his brow furrowed not just with concentration, but with a subtle, weary patience. A woman, grinding grain with a heavy stone, pauses, rubbing her lower back with a slow, deliberate motion, her eyes momentarily closing as if seeking a fleeting moment of internal escape. There's a shared, unspoken language of these small, persistent trials, a collective endurance etched onto every face. No one complains, no one cries out, but the toll is visible in the slight tension around their eyes, the economy of their movements, the deep-seated weariness that permeates their very posture. This perpetual discomfort doesn't scream for attention like a sharp wound, but it subtly drains you, drop by relentless drop, of your capacity for stillness, for deeper thought, for spiritual contemplation. How does one find the peace of God? How does one truly hear the gentle whispers of the divine, when the body itself is a constant symphony of minor irritations, a low-frequency hum that distracts, depletes, and ultimately distances the soul from its desired rest? It creates a spiritual silence not of peace, but of a weary mind battling endless small wars, a forgotten truth about the sheer, unyielding effort it took simply to exist, and, perhaps, to believe, in a world that allowed so little true reprieve. The first sensation that truly defines this moment isn't a taste of food, but the taste of sumanethmy itself. You bring the small, rough piece of flatbread to your lips. It's dry, coarse, barely warmed, and as you chew, slowly, deliberately, you perceive mostly the unadorned grain, earthy and plain. There's no richness, no lingering sweetness, no satiating fat. It's the taste of just enough asterisk, or perhaps of asterisk not quite enough, a profound blankness that hints at the hunger that still gnaws, deep and hollow within your stomach. This is the flavor of scarcity, a forgotten truth that seeps into every meal, shaping not just the body, but the spirit. You feel the persistent, low ache in your gut, a familiar companion that has settled there over countless days. It's not the sharp pang of sudden hunger, but a dull, insistent gnawing, a constant reminder that the body always yearns for more than it receives. Each swallow of the meager food is a conscious effort, a careful stretching of meager sustenance. Your tongue still feels slightly dry, coated with the ever-present dust of Galilee, a gritty echo that mixes with the blandness, a constant reminder of the world's harsh generosity. Around the small, low table, the atmosphere is hushed, a different kind of spiritual silence. There's no boisterous laughter, no lively chatter that accompanies abundant meals. Instead, you hear the quiet, rhythmic scrape of wooden spoons against earthenware bowls, a soft, almost reverent sound as each person meticulously gathers every last crumb, every drop of watery broth. You see the careful way a mother divides the last few olives among her children, her movements precise, her face etched with a quiet solemnity that speaks volumes about the preciousness of each portion. Your eyes, accustomed to seeking out sustenance, observe the empty bowls and platters that quickly gather around you. There's no second helping, no forgotten scraps. Each meal is a carefully managed act of survival, a daily testament to the thin line between having and not having. You catch the fleeting glances of others, not hungry stares, but a shared understanding, a quiet acknowledgement of the universal struggle. Their faces, thin and sun-weathered, reflect a deep, ingrained patience, a profound resilience born from generations of living with just enough, or less. As the sun dips below the horizon, casting long, fading shadows through the narrow window, the small oil lamp casts a flickering golden glow on the faces around you. In this dim, intimate light, the weight of scarcity feels almost heavier, more acutely present in the quiet. You find yourself searching, not just for physical satisfaction, but for a deeper spiritual nourishment, for a whisper of hope in a world that demands so much and offers so little. This profound, persistent taste of scarcity creates a unique spiritual challenge. How does one truly give thanks when the stomach is never quite full, when the next meal is always uncertain, when gratitude must be meticulously carved from what is almost nothing? What kind of prayers rise from throats parched by hunger, and what truths about God's provision, or His apparent silence, are forged in the quiet desperation of perpetual want? It's a forgotten truth that for many, faith wasn't born in abundance, but in the relentless, aching hollowness of a constant hunger, a spiritual silence filled not with doubt, but with a profound, unyielding yearning for something more, for a forgotten sustenance that transcends mere bread. The bowl placed before you holds the familiar, earthy scent of boiled lentils, a subtle aroma of starch and sun-dried legumes. It is the same scent as yesterday and the day before, a profound sameness that is more than just smell. It is a whisper of the unchanging rhythm of your sustenance. You dip the hard, unleavened bread into the meager stew. Its texture is unyielding, demanding effort from your teeth, and as you chew, slowly, deliberately, you taste the coarse grain, dry and unvaried, a silent companion to the ever-present dust of Galilee. There is no burst of flavor, no sweet surprise, only the deep, resonant note of simple survival, a forgotten truth about the daily grind that shapes not just the body, but the very texture of hope. You feel the slight warmth of the lentils in your mouth, a momentary comfort against the persistent chill of hunger that still gnaws, deep and hollow, within your stomach. Each bite of the hard bread is an exercise in persistence, a deliberate act to break it down, to extract every ounce of its meager nourishment. Your jaw aches subtly from the repetitive effort. The dull, earthy taste lingers, never exciting, never truly satisfying, but always present, a constant, low thrum against your palate. It's the taste of a life lived without excess, without the fleeting joy of culinary surprise, a profound spiritual silence in the realm of the senses. Around the small, low table, the atmosphere is hushed, not with reverence, but with a quiet, almost resigned focus. You hear the soft, rhythmic clink of earthenware spoons against bowls, a sound that speaks of methodical consumption, of careful, slow eating. as if to make the moment last, to extend the sensation of having. There are no exuberant exclamations, no bursts of laughter over a particularly savory morsel. Instead, you see the faces, thin and sun-weathered, bearing expressions of quiet endurance, their eyes fixed on their bowls, their movements precise and economical. A child, too young to fully understand, pushes a last lentil around their bowl with a small finger, then eats it, a silent gesture of not wasting even the smallest crumb. The sight of the unvaried pale brown lentils and the hard, flat bread, day after day, year after year, speaks volumes. It's a visual monotony that presses down on the spirit, a subtle erosion of expectation, of joy. There are no vibrant colors, no rich textures to awaken the senses, only the enduring, unyielding sameness. You catch a glimpse of your own reflection in a polished copper pot, a face etched with the same quiet determination, the same subtle weariness, the same profound understanding of what it means to simply endure. This relentless monotony, this spiritual silence of unvaried sustenance, carves deep into the soul. How does one cultivate a spirit of joyful gratitude when every meal is a reminder of constant, unyielding need? What kind of faith blossoms when every physical sensation speaks of scarcity and sameness, when the body yearns for an abundance that never arrives? It raises a haunting question. Did Jesus weep, in part, for the slow, quiet erosion of joy, for the spirit's struggle to find color and abundance in a world defined by the endless brown of lentils and the unyielding hardness of bread, leaving an aching hollow that no simple meal could ever truly fill? The deep, familiar quiet of the Galilean night, usually a comforting blanket woven with the chirping of crickets and the distant bray of a donkey, is shattered, utterly transformed, by a sound that tears at the fabric of your soul. It's a faint, shallow gasp for air, followed by a small, pathetic whimper, a child's restless, distressed murmur that cuts through the darkness like a knife. You feel it first as a tightening in your own chest, a cold knot of dread seizing your gut, pulling you instantly from the edge of sleep into a waking nightmare. This isn't just noise. It's the raw, visceral sound of fragile life struggling, a forgotten truth about the ever-present shadow of loss in a world without remedies. You reach out in the darkness, your hand trembling slightly, and the touch confirms your worst fears. The child's skin is a furnace, burning with an unnatural fierce heat that radiates through their thin tunic, hotter even than the fiercest midday sun. Beneath your palm you feel their small chest heaving, a rapid, shallow flutter that speaks of desperate effort. Their body shivers intermittently, a deep, internal tremor that shakes their tiny frame, yet the heat radiating from them is relentless, parching the air around them. You run your fingers through their damp hair, plastered to their forehead with sweat, and it feels coarse, lifeless. An oil lamp, hastily lit, casts flickering, anxious shadows across the humble room. The small flame dances, making the familiar mud brick walls seem to breathe, to close in around you, magnifying the suffocating intensity of the moment. In the dim, wavering light, you see the child's face, flushed and unnaturally bright, their eyes closed, fluttering rapidly, perhaps caught in a fevered dream. Their small hands twitch restlessly, reaching for something unseen, something just out of their grasp. You dab a rough cloth, dampened with precious, cool water, onto their burning forehead, feeling the momentary hiss of steam as the liquid meets the furious heat, a futile effort against an unseen enemy, a low murmur of desperate prayers, barely a whisper, escapes your lips, and the lips of others huddled nearby. Their faces, etched with exhaustion and profound worry, are blurred by the uncertain light, their gazes fixed on the child with a terrible, shared helplessness. There is no physician here with miraculous drafts, no easy answers, only the raw, aching silence of spiritual desperation, the silent cries of hearts wrestling with an unseen adversary. You feel a profound, terrifying powerlessness, a chasm opening beneath your feet as you watch the ebb and flow of this tiny, precious life, a constant, agonizing vigil. The night stretches on, an eternity punctuated by shallow breaths and whispered pleas. The scent of sickness, of sweat and fear, mingles with the faint, comforting aroma of burning oil, a stark contrast that highlights the fragility of existence. This crisis is not one of grand pronouncements or public spectacle, but an intimate, crushing struggle for life, played out in the profound spiritual silence of a darkened room. How many nights like this? How many unheard whimpers, how many battles against an unseen fever unfolded in this land? What forgotten grief? What quiet, agonizing helplessness did Jesus witness in homes like this, that might have brought tears to his eyes, tears not just for death, but for the relentless, everyday suffering of those he loved, for the sheer, brutal precariousness of every breath? What silent prayers were uttered, and what answers, if any, were truly heard in the vast, indifferent dark? The small, shallow breaths of the child, barely audible whispers in the oppressive dark, pierced the profound quiet of the room. Each faint gasp is a needle in your heart, a desperate, undeniable sound of a fragile life struggling against an unseen enemy. You've pressed cool, damp cloths to their burning forehead countless times, but now, even that simple comfort feels futile, almost mocking, evaporating instantly into the fierce, internal furnace that consumes their tiny body. You feel the crushing weight of your own hands, empty and useless, as you sit by their side, a forgotten truth about the limits of human love in the face of an invisible, merciless foe. Your fingers trace the contours of their flushed face in the dim, flickering light of an oil lamp. The skin, so soft moments ago, is now taut, dry, radiating an unnatural heat that seems to sap the very air from the room. You try to coax a sip of water to their cracked lips, but it dribbles down, mostly unswallowed, a symbol of your inability to truly nourish, to truly heal. A faint, acrid scent of sickness, of sweat and the bitter herbs that someone tried to apply, hangs heavy in the air, mingling with the suffocating aroma of fear and the unspoken prayers that rise like smoke. Around you, huddled figures cast long, anxious shadows against the mud brick walls. Their faces, blurred by the uncertain light, are masks of weary helplessness, their eyes wide and fixed on the struggling child, mirroring your own profound despair. You see the silent tears tracing paths through the dust on a grandmother's cheek, the subtle clench of a father's jaw, the furtive glances exchanged between neighbors, all speaking a language of utter powerlessness. There are no words, no consolations that can penetrate this terrible internal silence that envelops you, a chasm that swallows hope. The familiar sounds of the night outside, the distant bark of a dog, the rustle of the wind through olive trees, feel impossibly far away, irrelevant. Your world has shrunk to the suffocating confines of this small room, to the relentless, shallow rhythm of the child's breathing, to the insistent thrum of your own racing heart. You plead, silently, desperately, into the oppressive quiet, your prayers feeling like fragile, unheard whispers lost in the vast indifference of the dark. You search for a sign, a comfort, a hint of divine intervention, but there is only the terrifying, spiritual silence, an unanswered void. This isn't a crisis that can be fought with swords or reasoned with words. It is an internal battle against an enemy that cannot be seen, cannot be touched, cannot be understood. Your ancient knowledge, your meager remedies, your fervent prayers, all feel like grains of sand against a rising tide. This profound helplessness, this forced surrender to the unknown, carves a deep, aching wound in your soul. What does it mean to witness such suffering, such innocent vulnerability, and to be utterly, completely powerless? What forgotten grief, what quiet, agonizing doubt must have settled in the hearts of those who lived then, when the divine seemed so distant, and the relentless, invisible forces of sickness held such terrifying, unquestioned dominion over life and death, leaving behind a spiritual silence filled with unanswered pleas and unceasing sorrow. A sharp, needle-like pain flares, sudden and insistent, beneath the nail of your left index finger. It's tiny, almost imperceptible to the eye, a dark, thin line just under the delicate curve of the nail, yet its presence is a burning, undeniable declaration, hijacking your entire attention. You feel it throbbing with a dull, insistent rhythm, a constant, low-frequency ache that pulses in time with your own heartbeat. This isn't a grand wound, no visible gash or broken bone, but a minuscule, insidious torment, a forgotten truth about the daily, unrecorded battles of the body that wear down the spirit. You try to ignore it, to dismiss it as a trivial annoyance, but it's a relentless whisper, then a shout, in your nervous system. Each time your hand brushes against something, the rough fabric of your tunic, the coarse wood of a table, the gritty surface of a clay pot, the pain flares anew, a sharp, piercing jab that makes you gasp, a small, involuntary sound that barely escapes your lips. You find yourself instinctively curling your finger, trying to protect the tender spot, but even the pressure of your other fingers against it seems to amplify the throbbing, a cruel paradox. As you attempt to knead dough for the evening bread, your usual rhythmic movements become hesitant, stilted. The flour, soft and yielding, feels like sharp grit against the injured nail. You press down, trying to work the dough, and a fresh wave of agony shoots up your arm, making your shoulder tense, your jaw clench. You stop, pulling your hand back, examining the offending finger with a frown, as if willing the microscopic intruder to disappear. The comforting scent of warm flour, usually so grounding, now seems tinged with the metallic tang of irritation, a constant reminder of this small, relentless battle. You observe an older man nearby, meticulously carving a wooden figurine. His fingers, gnarled and thick with calluses, move with an effortless precision, oblivious to such minor torments. His gaze is steady, his breath even, entirely absorbed in his craft. You feel a pang of frustration, a quiet exasperation at your own inability to find such focus, your attention constantly pulled back to the sharp, internal demand of the splinter. How much unnoticed suffering did those hands endure, day after day, that they became immune to such small, persistent pains? The simple sounds of daily life, the distant bleating of a goat, the soft chatter of neighbors, the rhythmic splash of water from the well, all seem to recede, becoming background noise to the insistent thrumming beneath your nail. Your world has shrunk to the pinpoint focus of that single aggravating sensation. You try to pray, to turn your thoughts to matters of the spirit, but the persistent discomfort pulls at your attention, a physical anchor weighing down your contemplation. The spiritual silence you seek is elusive, fractured by the insistent, tiny voice of pain. This isn't a grand crisis, no public spectacle of suffering, but a constant, subtle erosion of peace. How many small, unrecorded torments like this did those in Galilee endure daily, shaping their patience, their quiet resilience, their very capacity for spiritual awareness? What forgotten grief, what quiet, agonizing distraction did Jesus witness in the hidden pains of everyday life? Pains that, though small, could steal a soul's quiet, make a mind restless, and leave a spiritual silence filled not with contemplation, but with the relentless hum of unyielding, humble suffering. The hands you hold before you are not smooth, unblemished skin, but a map of relentless effort, a testament to years spent wrestling with stubborn wood and unforgiving stone. You trace a thick, raised ridge across your palm, a permanent callus formed by the repeated grip of a heavy axe. Another line, sharper, almost a furrow, runs along your index finger, a scar from a chisel slip years ago, a story etched into your very flesh. Your fingernails are short, often split, ingrained with the fine, dark dust of wood and earth that no amount of scrubbing seems to fully remove. You feel the constant, subtle ache in your knuckles, a low thrum that pulses with every change in the weather, a forgotten truth about the silent, daily sacrifice of the body. The skin on your forearms is rough, tanned deeply by the Galilean sun, crisscrossed with a faint network of small nicks and older faded scars. Tiny emblems of tools that slipped, timbers that fell, lessons learned through pain. Your shoulders, when you rotate them, carry a familiar stiffness, a deep, persistent tension that never quite loosens. Even in rest, you lean against a workbench, its surface worn smooth by countless hands and the constant friction of wood, and feel the familiar give and take of your own frame, powerful yet undeniably marked by the relentless demands of a tecton's life. As you pick up a piece of olive wood, its gnarled, resistant grain feels intimately familiar against your calloused fingertips. You can almost read its history, its knots and twists, a silent language understood through years of touch. The tools, heavy and cold in your grasp, a saw, a hammer, a plane, feel like natural extensions of your weary limbs, their balance ingrained in your muscle memory. The scrape of the plane, a long, rhythmic whisper as it peels away fine, fragrant shavings, is a sound of creation, yet for you, it is also a sound of continued effort, of body against material, of strength enduring. You observe the hands of an older carpenter across the room, perhaps a mentor. His hands are even more gnarled, more deeply scarred, the fingers slightly crooked, a true testament to a lifetime of such labor. There's a profound, spiritual silence in his focused movements, a quiet dignity in the way he handles the wood, a patience born from countless hours of disciplined toil. His face, deeply lined, holds a serene intensity that seems to absorb all sound, all distraction into the rhythm of his craft. He doesn't complain, doesn't even pause. He simply sets the work, This deep imprint of labor on the body creates a unique kind of spiritual connection, a profound, unrecorded language between the craftsman and his God. How many unspoken prayers were woven into the grain of wood, into the steady swing of a hammer, into the aching muscles at the end of a long day? What forgotten revelation about the nature of creation, of endurance, of purpose, did these permanent scars speak? They are not just marks of injury, but badges of a life lived in tangible communion with the very substance of the world, leaving a spiritual silence that holds both the weariness of the flesh and the quiet, unwavering strength of a soul forged in daily, demanding, sacred labor. A profound primal darkness envelops you, absolute and suffocating, swallowing all light, all form, all familiar comfort. It's not merely the absence of the sun. It's a tangible presence, a heavy, silent blanket that presses in on your eyes, your mind, your very soul. You feel it immediately, a disorienting loss of sight that throws your other senses into overdrive, yet leaves them struggling to find purchase in this boundless void. This isn't just night. It's the forgotten truth of a world without electric light, a darkness so profound it whispers of the beginning of creation and perhaps of the end. You reach out, your hand sweeping through empty air, finding no comfort, no familiar surface to ground you. The rough earth beneath your sandals feels alien, indistinct, your footing uncertain. You take a step, then another, but there's no visual cue, no distant flicker, no star, to guide you. It's a terrifying surrender to the unknown, a forced reliance on instinct and memory that feels utterly inadequate. The familiar sense of Galilean life, the dry dust, the faint aroma of olive trees, the distant smell of cooking fires, are still present, but they are muted, diffused, swallowed by the immense consuming darkness, offering no clear direction. The sounds, too, are transformed. The chirping of crickets, usually a gentle lullaby, now feels amplified, sharp, almost aggressive in the overwhelming silence. A distant bray of a donkey sounds closer, more startling, its cry echoing in the vast, unseeing expanse. Every rustle of leaves, every soft scuff of wind becomes an acutely perceived event, a tremor in the pervasive quiet. It's a spiritual silence born of utter sensory deprivation, a profound aloneness that forces introspection, whether welcome or not. Your own breath sounds loud, almost ragged, in this unyielding void. You feel a subtle, instinctive fear begin to prickle at the back of your neck, a primal unease that whispers of unseen dangers, of unexpected falls, of the unknown lurking just beyond the reach of your outstretched hand. Your mind races, trying to conjure images, to create a mental map of your surroundings, but it struggles, dissolving into disjointed fragments. There is no escape from this all-consuming dark, no corner to hide in, no familiar object to cling to for reassurance. This isn't just physical blindness. It's a profound spiritual reckoning. In this absolute void, where outward distractions cease, the inner world surges forward, unbidden, demanding attention. What does it mean to truly rely on faith when sight is stripped away, when only the internal compass remains? What forgotten prayers, what deepest fears, what desperate yearning for a divine presence emerge when the world itself dissolves into such unyielding darkness? It raises a haunting question. Did Jesus understand this primal terror, this spiritual silence? This profound aloneness that came when the familiar world vanished into an all-consuming void. It's a revelation about the true meaning of light, not just as a physical phenomenon, but as a spiritual necessity, a constant, unspoken comfort that is only truly understood in its absolute, terrifying absence. A single fragile flame, no bigger than your thumbnail, struggles against the suffocating vastness of the darkness. It's not a comforting glow, but a desperate, flickering pulse, a tiny, defiant heart beating at the center of an immense, encroaching void. You feel its warmth, surprisingly intense, on your face, a small pocket of defiant heat, battling the chill that seems to emanate from the shadowed corners of the room. This isn't just illumination. It's a living testament to vulnerability, a forgotten truth about the precious, precarious nature of light itself. The scent of burning oil, faintly metallic and earthy, fills your nostrils, a constant low-grade perfume that mixes with the familiar dry dust of the Galilean home. You lean closer, instinctively, drawn to the meager brilliance, your eyes straining to capture every wisp of light it offers. The shadows are not banished, they are merely held at bay, dancing wildly at the periphery, elongating, twisting, then shrinking with every subtle shift of the flame, making familiar objects seem to writhe, to gain an unsettling life of their own. Your hand, reaching for an object, casts a grotesque, oversized caricature on the wall, a fleeting phantom of your own being. You sit on the rough, cool stone floor, your body a mere shape defined by the light's limited reach. The faces of those gathered around you are half revealed, half obscured, shifting canvases of light and shade. You see the deep lines etched by the sun, now softened by the flicker, lending an almost ethereal quality. Their eyes, though, are mirrors of your own, wide and focused, fixed on that single struggling source, a silent, communal vigil. A child, nestled against their mother, lifts a small hand, captivated by the dancing flame, its innocent wonder a stark contrast to the profound dependency that binds you all to this single point. The sounds, too, are amplified and transformed by the profound quiet. The faint sputter of the wick, as it consumes its oil, is a startlingly loud, intimate sound, a constant reminder of its finite life. The soft rustle of someone shifting, a whispered breath, the distant chirping of crickets from outside, all are magnified, becoming events in this small, illuminated universe. The darkness presses in, a heavy, silent presence, making every sound precious, every shared breath a testament to collective existence in the face of an encompassing night. It creates a spiritual silence, not of peace, but of profound, watchful dependence. This isn't just about seeing, it's about trusting in that frail, wavering light. You realize how much the soul yearns for light, not just to navigate physically, but to orient itself, to hold back the encroaching fears of the unknown. When the only light is a flickering wick, every shadow holds a silent question, every movement beyond its radius a potential terror. This profound reliance on such a fragile source reveals a forgotten truth. How deeply interwoven was faith with the very presence of light, a primal, almost desperate longing for revelation in the face of an absolute consuming darkness. What unspoken prayers were breathed into the fragile, scented air around such a solitary flame? What hopes were kindled, and what profound gratitude was felt for the simple, defiant promise of a light that, however small, still managed to push back the terrifying void, illuminating not just the physical space, but the very soul. In a world where true darkness was a pervasive, inescapable reality, the bustling sounds of the marketplace, usually a vibrant tapestry of life, suddenly feel distant, muffled, as if a thick curtain has been drawn. Your gaze is drawn irresistibly to a figure huddled against the warm, dusty stone wall of a shop. It's a man, his face a canvas of sun-baked lines and shadows, framed by hair matted with grime. But it's his eyes that seize you, holding you captive in an unnerving, profound stillness. They are open, yes, fixed somewhere beyond you, yet utterly empty. There's no spark of recognition, no plea, no anger, no trace of the soul's usual light. It's a gaze that sees nothing, desires nothing, reflects nothing. A terrifying, hollow mirror that seems to swallow the vibrant world around it. This is the forgotten truth of a deeper kind of blindness, a spiritual void that speaks of utter, absolute surrender. You feel a cold knot form in your stomach, a chill that has nothing to do with the Galilean heat. The usual instinct to avert your eyes, to hurry past, is thwarted by the sheer, unblinking intensity of that vacant stare. Your feet, accustomed to the rhythmic scuff of dust, now feel heavy, rooted to the uneven ground. The clamor of hawkers, the bleating of goats, the incessant buzz of flies, all recede, becoming a low, indistinct hum, swallowed by the immense, quiet tragedy radiating from this still figure. The air around him seems to thicken, heavy with the scent of unwashed garments, stale sweat, and the pervasive dust that coats everything, a silent testimony to endless days in the same spot. The man's body is a study in resignation. His hands, gnarled and thin, lie open in his lap, palms upturned, not in an active gesture of begging, but in a posture of profound, passive acceptance. They are empty, not just of coins, but of expectation, of hope. His rough-spun tunic is torn, faded, blending with the ochre hues of the wall, making him seem almost a part of the stone itself, a monument to human endurance and profound neglect. He makes no sound, no petition, no effort to engage with the river of life flowing past him. His stillness is absolute, a stark contrast to the relentless motion of the market. Others pass by, a steady stream of humanity. Some quicken their pace, their eyes fixed firmly ahead, a subtle tightening around their mouths betraying a shared, uncomfortable awareness. A woman, balancing a basket on her head, carefully skirts wider around him, her gaze downcast, murmuring a quick prayer. A young boy, curious and unafraid, begins to approach, but his mother's hand grips his arm firmly, pulling him back with a swift, unspoken urgency. Their reactions are not necessarily cruel, but born of a deep, almost ritualistic avoidance, a fear of contagion, not just of disease, but perhaps of the utter hopelessness that radiates from him. You stand there for a moment, caught in the spiritual silence of his empty gaze. It doesn't ask for alms, but it asks a profound, unspoken question. Where is God in this abandonment? What divine presence, what shred of spiritual solace, can reach into such a complete, self-erasing void? This isn't just physical destitution. It's a desolation of the soul, a forgotten moment where faith itself seems to falter, rendered impotent by an emptiness too vast to comprehend. His unseeing eyes bear witness to a crisis of the spirit, a silent, aching plea for a presence that seems to have long since withdrawn, leaving only the relentless sun and the dust. A subtle, almost imperceptible hardening begins within you, a tightening around your heart, a dulling of your senses against the ceaseless drumbeat of need that echoes through the sun-baked streets. You feel your gaze, once lingering, now quickening its pace, skimming past the outstretched hands, the shadowed faces, the quiet pleas that become a part of the background hum. It's not cruelty you feel, not malice, but a profound, weary necessity, a silent pact you make with yourself just to keep moving, just to ensure your own fragile survival in a world that offers no easy comfort. This is the forgotten truth, that compassion can be a luxury, and callousness a vital shield. You feel the worn leather of your sandal scuffing rhythmically against the dusty, uneven ground, a steady, unyielding beat that carries you forward, past the familiar tableau of suffering. The air, usually thick with the scent of spices and sweat, now carries a faint, acrid tang of resignation, a smell that subtly clings to the garments of those who, like you, walk past without pausing. Your shoulders remain straight, your head slightly bowed, not in deference, but in a practiced avoidance of eye contact. A silent message: I cannot help. I cannot see. Ahead, you catch sight of the beggar from before, still huddled against the sun-warmed stone wall, his empty gaze fixed on the middle distance. No longer does his vacant stare seize you with its unnerving intensity. Now it is simply dorting there succès fixed on a part of the landscape, like a gnarled olive tree or a broken pot. You watch as others, women with brimming water jugs, men with heavy sacks, children clutching small loaves of bread, also walk by. Their steps do not falter. Their expressions remain carefully neutral, their eyes fixed on the path ahead, or on their own burdens, a collective, silent agreement to keep moving, to preserve what little they possess. A young mother, her face etched with exhaustion, pulls her child closer to her side, steering them wide around a figure huddled in the shadows, her movement quick, almost imperceptible. There's no harsh word, no open disdain, only the swift, decisive action born of 1,000 similar passages. You understand it. To stop, to engage, is to open a door to a need that can never be truly filled. A bottomless well of suffering that threatens to swallow your own meager reserves. It's a silent, daily prayer. Let me make it through this day, with my small store, with my family safe, with my heart intact. This profound spiritual silence is not an absence of God, but a silencing of the human heart, a necessary calcification forged in the crucible of constant want and widespread pain. How much of the soul is shed, day after day, in this relentless act of self-preservation? What forgotten grief, what hidden ache did Jesus witness in this hardened compassion, in the quiet turning away, in the spiritual cost of simply surviving in a world where mercy felt too expensive to truly afford? It raises a haunting question. Does God truly ask for a love that can break the very heart that struggles to survive? Or is there a sacredness in the silent, painful act of carrying on, even when it demands a part of your own spirit to harden just to make it through another day? A profound, arresting scent descends upon you, thick and visceral, cutting through the usual aromas of dust and heat. It's a metallic, coppery tang, sharp and unmistakable, mingling with the sweet, cloying perfume of expensive incense and the heavy, earthy smell of burning fat. This isn't the scent of life, but of its deliberate, ritualistic cessation, a primal aroma that bypasses reason and speaks directly to a deeper, ancient part of your being. You feel it on the back of your tongue, a faint, metallic taste, a forgotten truth about the raw, visceral demands of ancient faith. You are moving through a crowded courtyard, the polished white stones gleaming under the relentless sun. Figures in long, flowing robes move with solemn, purposeful strides, their hushed voices blending into a low, continuous drone, punctuated by the occasional bleat of a frightened lamb, a sound quickly silenced. Your rough sandals scuff against the stones, now slick in places with something dark and viscous, something you instinctively try to avoid. The air, heavy and still, seems to hold the tension, the unspoken weight of the sacrifices being offered, a palpable charge that prickles your skin. Ahead, you see the altars, enormous blackened stone structures from which plumes of dark smoke rise, twisting lazily into the pale, indifferent sky. The heat emanating from them is immense, almost physically pushing you back, carrying with it the sickeningly sweet smell of scorched flesh. Priests, their faces grim and stained with ash, move with a practiced ritualistic efficiency, their movements precise and unwavering. You catch a fleeting glimpse of a sharp, gleaming blade, then the flash of something bright and red against the pale stone, quickly washed away by a stream of water, leaving behind only a darker stain. The sounds in this sacred space are not those of joyful celebration, but of solemn ceremony and raw animal fear. A low, rhythmic chant from a distant corner of the temple is punctuated by the sharp, desperate cries of penned animals, goats, doves, lambs, their fear palpable, a raw, innocent lament that struggles against the pervasive, ritualistic hum. You hear the deep thud of a carcass being moved, the dull scrape of bone on stone, and the constant gurgling flow of water, washing away what has been spilled, a relentless cleansing that can never fully erase the memory of the act. You witness a young boy, no older than 10, his eyes wide and solemn, clutching the hand of his father. He holds a small, trembling white dove in a wicker cage, its small, wild eyes darting nervously. As they approach the altar, the boy's hand tightens, his face a mixture of fear and profound, inherited reverence. You feel a pang, a subtle ache, at the quiet, unprotesting surrender of the innocent, both animal and child, to this ancient, demanding ritual. This isn't just a place of worship. It's a profound confrontation with the cost of faith, a forgotten truth about the visceral demands of appeasing the divine. The metallic tang in the air, the guttural sounds, the unspoken terror, all combine to create a spiritual silence that is not peaceful, but heavy with the weight of blood and tradition, a quiet question echoing in the vast, indifferent heavens. What kind of God truly demands such a brutal physical payment for sin? What unrecorded grief, what quiet, agonizing doubt did Jesus witness in the silent fear of the innocent, in the unwavering dedication to such a bloody ritual? Tears perhaps not just for the sacrifices, but for the profound, unyielding human need to believe that such an act could truly bridge the chasm between man and God. The air around you is thick, almost syrupy, with a potent, cloying warmth that prickles your skin and invades your nostrils. It's the undeniable scent of freshly spilled blood, metallic and earthy, mingling violently with the heavy, sweet perfume of frankincense from nearby altars. This isn't a distant aroma. It's a profound visceral reality, a forgotten truth about atonement's raw cost. You feel its tangible warmth, a chilling reminder that life has been exchanged, brutally, for something sacred. You stand closer now, pushed forward by a solemn, silent throng, your rough sandals slipping slightly on polished white stone, darkly stained. The sun, usually blinding, casts long, unsettling shadows from towering altars, making the scene feel both ancient and terrifyingly immediate. Before you, a priest, bare, strong arms stained crimson, moves with practiced, mechanical grace. His face is impassive, etched with ritual, his gaze fixed beyond the dying animal, on an unseen, unyielding, divine presence. A low, guttural gurgle, the last desperate sound from a sacrificed lamb, dies suddenly, leaving a profound, unsettling quiet. You feel a tremor pass through your chest, an echo of that final breath. Its small, limp body, so recently vibrant, lies before the priest, eyes still open, reflecting the indifferent sky. The warmth of its fresh blood steams faintly in the dry air, a chilling vapor carrying the pungent scent of sacrifice, of life extinguished for appeasement. You watch as the priest, with steady hand, collects blood in a basin, his movements precise, unwavering. The crowd breathes in unison, a low, collective sigh. Their faces show solemn awe, profound reverence, and deep, ingrained fear. Eyes are downcast, lips move in silent prayers, hands clasped tightly, in desperate supplication. No one speaks. No one questions. The air is charged with sin's weight, communal guilt, and an ancient yearning for purity, for forgiveness. The spiritual silence is absolute, a chasm to be bridged by this brutal, visceral act. A profound, unsettling disquiet stirs within you. Is this reconciliation? Does God demand such a raw, tangible price, an innocent life, for human transgression? The warmth of spilled blood on cold stone, the stillness of the dead body, the unwavering faces of the priests, all form an undeniable, terrifying reality of atonement. It raises a haunting, aching question. What grief, what quiet sorrow did Jesus experience witnessing these acts, these unquestioned exchanges of innocent life for sin, in the heart of his faith? What unrecorded tears did he shed for the profound, visceral price exacted, day after brutal day, in relentless pursuit of an unseen, demanding God? A subtle, persistent prickle begins deep within your gut, a low thrum of anxiety that tightens your chest and makes your breath shallow. It's not a sudden danger, but a pervasive, internal tremor, the constant, unspoken worry of ritual purity that governs every movement, every interaction, every thought in this land. You feel it in the careful way you place your sandals on the clean, swept ground, avoiding the slightest speck of dust that might bring defilement. This isn't just a custom. It's a living, breathing burden, a forgotten truth about the profound, spiritual tension that permeated daily existence. The air around you, usually thick with the scent of sun-baked earth, now feels crisp, almost sterile. Near the public mikveh, the ritual bath, you catch the faint, cool scent of fresh water, mingled with the dry, almost antiseptic aroma of unadorned stone. But beneath that, you detect the subtle human tang of 1,000 bodies that have sought purification, a quiet reminder of the endless cycle of cleansing and re-cleansing. Your rough tunic, though clean, suddenly feels inadequate, a fragile barrier against a world teeming with potential defilement. You watch as a woman approaches the mikveh, her face a mask of solemn concentration. Her movements are deliberate, precise, each step measured. Her gaze sweeps the ground before her, vigilant, searching for any impurity. Her hands, clasped together, seem to hold not just a garment, but the weight of unspoken worry, of 1,000 tiny rules and regulations that dictate her access to the sacred. You feel the collective tension, the shared anxiety, as she descends the steps into the cool, dark water. A silent prayer for acceptance, for renewal, for a temporary reprieve from the constant internal vigilance. The sounds are hushed here, almost reverent, a different kind of spiritual silence. You hear the soft, rhythmic splash of water as bodies enter and emerge, a constant, low murmur of cleansing. The faint rustle of clothing, the soft shuffle of feet, the occasional, quiet sigh of relief, all are magnified in this sacred, yet profoundly anxious space. There is no joyous laughter, no casual chatter. Instead, there is a deep, internal focus, a desperate yearning for the peace that comes with being, even for a fleeting moment, truly clean, truly acceptable in the eyes of God. As you consider your own journey, your own daily struggles, the weight of these invisible rules presses down on your spirit. Had you touched something unclean unknowingly? Had a thought strayed into forbidden territory? The anxiety is subtle, insidious, a constant whisper of doubt that gnaws at the edges of your peace. It's a crisis not of external danger, but of internal spiritual tension, a profound struggle to maintain a state of grace in a world perpetually full of pitfalls and potential defilement. This relentless anxiety of ritual purity carves a deep, almost unacknowledged wound in the soul. How does one truly feel free, truly feel loved? When every step, every touch, every moment is governed by the fear of impurity, by the silent threat of separation from God and community. What forgotten grief, what quiet yearning for unburdened belonging did Jesus witness in the faces of those meticulously seeking purification? Tears, perhaps not for their efforts, but for the profound spiritual silence born from a pervasive, unyielding anxiety that prevented so many from finding true rest in God. The fresh, fleeting coolness of the purification water still clings to your skin, a momentary balm against the ever-present heat and dust. You've just emerged from the mikveh, feeling a fragile, temporary lightness, a spiritual breath of fresh air. But even as you pull your clean, coarse tunic back over your head, a subtle anxiety begins to prickle. The clean scent of water is already mingling with the dry, mineral aroma of the Galilean air, carrying with it the invisible threat of redefilement. This isn't a state of rest. It's a constant, never-ending battle, a forgotten truth about the sheer, exhausting effort of maintaining ritual purity in a world that conspires against it. You feel the dust settling on your freshly cleansed skin, a fine, almost imperceptible film that lands on your hair, your face, your hands, immediately after you step out. Each breath you take tastes faintly of this omnipresent grit, a constant reminder that the world outside the bath is inherently, perpetually unclean. Your rough sandals scuff against the packed earth, and a tiny reddish cloud rises, swirling around your ankles, then drifting upwards, coating your garments, your exposed skin. You had been clean for mere moments, and now, the process of becoming soiled begins anew, relentlessly. You walk through the narrow street, your steps precise, deliberate, your gaze sweeping the ground before you with an ingrained vigilance. You instinctively skirt around a stray dog rooting in the refuse, then widen your path to avoid the shadow of a woman carrying a clay pot from the market, her hands perhaps unclean. Every surface, every person, every interaction becomes a potential source of defilement, a silent test of your unwavering watchfulness. The air, thick with the scent of humanity and the earth, feels heavy with these unspoken threats, each one requiring a mental calculation, a subtle adjustment to avoid transgression. You observe an older man, his face etched with weary patience, meticulously washing his hands for the third time before breaking bread. His movements are almost ritualistic, slow and thorough, yet in his eyes you catch a flicker of exhaustion, a profound understanding of the futility, the endlessness of the task. He dries his hands with a small, clean cloth, then sighs, a low, quiet exhalation that speaks of a battle continuously fought, never truly won. There is no joy in the act, only a deep, weary resignation. The sounds of the village, usually a vibrant tapestry, now seem to carry an undercurrent of this constant, quiet struggle. The distant murmur of conversation, the rustle of clothes, the shuffle of feet, all seem tinged with the subtle tension of avoidance, of careful negotiation with an inherently impure world. Your own thoughts are a ceaseless internal monologue, a mental checklist of what you've touched, what you've seen, what you might have inadvertently come into contact with. A relentless vigilance that steals peace, fragments focus, and makes true stillness of mind almost impossible. This impossible task of staying clean creates a profound spiritual silence, not of peace, but of constant internal chatter, of anxious self-monitoring that drowns out the gentle whispers of the divine. How does one truly draw near to God when the very act of living, of touching the world, immediately separates you from the sacred? What forgotten grief, what quiet, agonizing weariness did Jesus witness in the endless, exhausting striving for external purity? Tears perhaps not for their meticulous efforts, but for the profound spiritual burden that prevented so many from finding true, unburdened rest in God's acceptance. A subtle, persistent chill settles over you, not from the weather, but from the shadow of the small, unassuming booth carved into the side of the bustling street. It's not grand or imposing, yet its presence casts a long, chilling pall over the vibrant activity around it. You feel it as a tightening in your gut, an involuntary clench of your jaw as you draw near. This isn't merely a place of commerce. It's a silent sentinel of power, a forgotten truth about the insidious daily toll of oppression in this ancient land. The air around the booth feels subtly different, heavier, charged with a low, unspoken tension. You catch the metallic tang of copper coins, mingling with the dry dust of the road and the faint, unsettling scent of old parchment. Your worn sandals instinctively slow, your steps becoming more hesitant on the uneven ground. You observe the stream of people moving along the road, their paths often subtly, unconsciously altering to give the booth a wider berth, a silent dance of avoidance and deference. No one lingers nearby. No one makes eye contact with the solitary figure within. You see him, the tax collector, hunched slightly over a small wooden table, an ink pot and a roll of parchment before him. His face is impassive, shadowed by the booth's low roof, his eyes sharp, unwavering, sweeping over the passing crowd with a cold, assessing gaze. His hand, as it reaches out to collect payment, is surprisingly quick, efficient, almost devoid of human warmth. There's no greeting, no pleasantry, only the brisk, transactional exchange, the clink of coin on wood, a sound that resonates with the chill of inevitability. The sounds around the booth are muted, hushed, a different kind of spiritual silence. The vibrant market chatter, the cries of vendors, the laughter of children, all soften, recede, becoming a distant hum that struggles to penetrate the heavy atmosphere. You hear the sharp, distinct clink of coins, a sound that carries the weight of forced tribute, of lost sustenance, of stolen dignity. You catch the low, often strained murmurs of those who must approach, their voices tight with suppressed resentment, with the bitter taste of unfairness. You witness a young farmer, his shoulders slumped, his face grim, counting out a small pile of copper coins, his hand trembling slightly. You see the subtle shift in his eyes, the flicker of a deep, suppressed anger as he places the coins on the table. The tax collector's hand sweeps them away without a word, without a glance, his face unreadable. There is no joy in the transaction, only a profound, unspoken despair. This isn't just a tax. It's a constant, daily humiliation, an unyielding reminder of foreign dominion and internal betrayal. The shadow of that booth, both literal and metaphorical, falls over every transaction, every meager earning, subtly draining the spirit, corroding trust, and breeding a quiet, seething resentment. It raises a haunting question. What forgotten grief, what quiet, agonizing despair did Jesus witness in the faces of those forced to pay such a relentless, unjust tribute? Tears perhaps not for the money, but for the profound spiritual silence born from a pervasive, unyielding oppression that eroded hope, bred bitterness, and made the very act of living a daily submission. A subtle, bitter tang like acrid smoke fills the air around you, not from a fire, but from the raw, unspoken resentment that simmers beneath the surface of every forced interaction. You feel it in the tense silence that falls when a particular name is mentioned, in the quick, averted glances, in the almost imperceptible tightening of jaws. This isn't just societal tension. It's a deep, corrosive bitterness, a forgotten truth about the spiritual wounds that pit neighbor against neighbor, corroding the very fabric of community. You are walking through the narrow, dusty streets, your worn sandals scuffing against the familiar earth. The usual vibrant sounds of neighborly greetings and easy chatter are noticeably absent, replaced by a cautious quiet, a wary reserve. People speak in lower tones, their voices often tinged with suspicion, their words carefully chosen, as if fearing unseen ears. The air feels heavy, charged with a subtle, underlying friction, a collective holding of breath that speaks of deep-seated mistrust. You catch the faint scent of fear, mingled with the pervasive dust and sweat, a chilling, almost primal aroma. Ahead you see a small group of men gathered near the well, their expressions grim, their hands clenched. One gestures angrily towards a house across the street, his voice a low, furious murmur, punctuated by a sharp, spitting sound of contempt. You don't need to hear the words to understand. The target of their scorn, the inhabitant of that house, is undoubtedly one of them. A tax collector, a collaborator, someone who has chosen personal gain over communal loyalty. A betrayal that festers like an open wound in the heart of the village. You observe the subtle shifts in their body language. The way they position themselves, turning their backs slightly to the offending house, their shoulders hunched in a gesture of collective disdain. Their eyes, when they meet yours, hold a shared understanding, a silent invitation to join their condemnation, a silent expectation of your complicity. But you also notice the fear in their eyes, the awareness that even their quiet expressions of anger could carry a dangerous cost, a silent acknowledgement of the price of resistance. This isn't a conflict of armies, but a war of the spirit, fought in the hearts of men. The profound spiritual silence here is not one of peace, but of a deep, festering wound that cuts through families, friends, and the very bonds of shared identity. It separates, it alienates, it turns solace into suspicion and trust into a dangerous gamble. It's a crisis of belonging, a profound spiritual loneliness forged in the fires of betrayal and resentment. How does one build a kingdom? How does one preach love and unity when the very people are so deeply divided by such raw, personal wounds? What forgotten grief, what quiet, agonizing sorrow did Jesus witness in the faces of those who harbored such bitter resentment? Tears perhaps not for their anger, but for the profound spiritual silence born from a pervasive, unyielding tension that fractured community, eroded trust, and made the simple act of loving one's neighbor an act of almost impossible, heartbreaking defiance. What ultimate cost does this constant, internal warfare exact on the soul, leaving behind only the acrid taste of bitterness and the echo of forgotten fellowship? A harsh, clipped rhythm intrudes upon the familiar cadences of Aramaic and Hebrew, a cascade of unfamiliar, guttural sounds that feels utterly alien to your ears. It's a language, yes, but one without warmth, without familiar inflection, without the comforting rhythm of home. You hear the sharp, insistent commands, the quick, barking questions, the detached pronouncements, all delivered with an unyielding certainty that leaves no room for misunderstanding, only for obedience. This isn't just a foreign tongue, it's the very sound of dominion, a forgotten truth about the spiritual tension of living under an occupying power. You are navigating the crowded marketplace, the usual sounds of haggling and chatter suddenly muted, pushed into the background by this insistent foreign speech. You feel a subtle tightening in your gut, an instinctive prickle of fear that ripples through the crowd. The air, usually thick with the scent of spices and dust, now carries a faint, sharp tang of iron and cured leather, an olfactory signature of their constant presence. Your worn sandals instinctively quicken their pace, your body subtly urging you to move away from the source of the alien sounds, to find a space where your own language, your own identity, can breathe freely. You see them, a small contingent of Roman soldiers, their bronze helmets glinting menacingly in the harsh Galilean sun, their scarlet cloaks a stark, violent contrast to the muted tones of the village. Their voices are loud, carrying over the subdued market each syllable an assertion of power. You watch as a local merchant, his face etched with weary patience, attempts to respond, stammering a few broken Greek words, a desperate attempt to bridge the linguistic chasm. But the soldiers, eyes, cold and impassive, convey a clear message. Your language is not ours, and therefore your understanding is irrelevant. The sounds of their foreign tongue are not just words. They are an auditory barrier, an impenetrable wall that separates you from understanding, from argument, from any form of equal exchange. It creates a profound spiritual silence, a void in communication where true connection is impossible, replaced only by the stark, transactional reality of command and compliance. You feel the collective helplessness in the bowed heads, the averted gazes, the tightened shoulders of those around you, all struggling with the same unspoken burden. Their eyes meet yours for a fleeting moment, a shared understanding of this fundamental division. This isn't just a language barrier. It's a constant, daily humiliation, a relentless reminder that your world is no longer entirely your own, that your words, your culture, your very way of speaking are secondary. It gnaws at the spirit, subtly eroding confidence, fostering a deep, seething resentment beneath the enforced calm. How does one maintain a sense of self, a sense of divinely given identity, when the most powerful voices in your land speak a tongue you barely comprehend, a language that commands and controls but never truly connects? What forgotten grief, what quiet, agonizing frustration did Jesus witness in the faces of those grappling with the linguistic tyranny of their occupiers? Tears perhaps not for their inability to understand, but for the profound spiritual silence born from a pervasive, unyielding disconnection that fractured community, stifled self-expression, and made true, heartfelt dialogue an act of almost impossible, heartbreaking defiance. A cold, sharp disconnect settles in your gut, a profound sense of not belonging, even as your feet tread the familiar dust of your ancestral lands. It's not a physical journey that brought this alienation, but an insidious, spiritual estrangement, a constant, unspoken reminder that your home is no longer entirely your own. You feel it in the subtle way your steps quicken when you pass certain buildings, in the way your eyes instinctively scan for unfamiliar uniforms, in the quiet clench of your jaw. This isn't just occupation. It's a soul-deep fracture, a forgotten truth about the insidious erosion of identity when one becomes a stranger in their own land. The air, usually thick with the comforting sense of local cooking and blooming wildflowers, now carries the faint, acrid tang of Roman encampments, iron, cured leather, foreign smoke, an unwelcome scent that subtly contaminates the very air you breathe. Your rough tunic, made from local wool, feels alien against your skin when you pass a Roman soldier, his polished armor reflecting a cold, indifferent glare. The familiar sounds of Aramaic and Hebrew, usually a soothing balm, are now frequently punctuated by the harsh, clipped commands of Latin, a constant auditory invasion that feels like a violation of your very cultural space. You walk past the imposing new structures they've built, a barracks with its rigid, imposing lines, a paved road cutting an unswerving path through ancient fields, a small, fortified administrative building. These aren't merely new additions, they are declarations of ownership, visible scars on the landscape, designed to assert power, not to blend. You see the local farmers, bent over their fields, their movements slow and patient, yet their eyes are often cast downward, avoiding the gaze of the passing Roman patrols, a silent testimony to the pervasive, internal vigilance they must maintain. Their fields, their harvests, their very labor are now subject to another's will. The faces of your own people, usually open and expressive, often carry a subtle mask of reserve, a cautious neutrality when interacting with outsiders, or even when speaking among themselves. There's a shared, unspoken understanding of the need for discretion, of the dangers inherent in even a carelessly spoken word. This creates a profound, spiritual silence, not of peace, but of suppressed voices, of unexpressed frustrations, of a collective holding of breath that permeates every interaction. It's a silence that screams of a lost sense of self, a profound internal displacement. This alienation, this feeling of being an outsider in your own home, gnaws at the spirit. How does one truly feel connected to God, to a history, to a future, when the very ground beneath your feet feels less like an inheritance and more like a borrowed space, subject to the whims of foreign rulers? What forgotten grief, what quiet, agonizing erosion of spirit did Jesus witness in the faces of his people? Tears perhaps not for their physical suffering, but for the profound spiritual silence born from a pervasive, unyielding subjugation that stripped them of their agency, their voice, and their very sense of belonging in the land of their ancestors. What ultimate cost does this constant, internal battle for identity exact on the soul, leaving behind a longing for a home that feels forever out of reach? A different kind of chill permeates the air, not from the weather, but from the raw, undeniable reality of human vulnerability. You feel it as you watch an elder, their frame bent and slight, navigate the uneven ground. Each step is an exercise in careful balance, a slow, deliberate shuffle as if testing the earth for stability. The very air around them seems to hum with an unspoken tension, a palpable fragility. This isn't just old age. It's the forgotten truth of bones grown brittle, of a body perpetually teetering on the edge of collapse, a living testament to the relentless march of time. You observe their hands, gnarled and thin, their skin like parchment stretched taut over prominent veins. They tremble slightly as they reach for a rough wooden staff, a constant companion that bears much of their precarious weight. The grip is tenuous, the fingers curled around the wood with a delicate, almost desperate tenacity. You notice the subtle pain in their eyes as they slowly lower themselves onto a low, stone bench, their movements stiff, each small adjustment a silent protest from protesting joints. A low groan, almost imperceptible, escapes their lips, quickly suppressed, a private acknowledgement of internal battles. The sun, usually a source of warmth, now seems to highlight the vulnerability of their exposed skin, revealing a network of thin, purple veins, a map of life slowly receding. The dry, dusty air carries the faint scent of old wool and something sweet, medicinal, perhaps a salve for aching joints. You hear the rhythmic, shallow rasp of their breath, a sound that speaks of effort, of a constant struggle to draw enough air into aging lungs. Every sound they make, every movement, is tinged with the profound awareness of physical limitation, a deep, pervasive spiritual silence where the body cries out but the spirit must quietly endure. You pass a small group of younger men, their shoulders broad, their strides confident, their laughter echoing through the narrow street. They move with an almost careless ease, their strength a stark, unsettling contrast to the frailty you've just witnessed. Their youth feels like a vibrant, noisy declaration of invincibility, utterly oblivious to the quiet battles fought by their elders, a forgotten truth of the generational chasm of physical experience. This profound fragility, this silent struggle against the relentless decay of the body, creates a spiritual silence that is not one of peace, but of profound, unspoken surrender. How does one maintain dignity? How does one find joy? How does one truly connect with a vibrant God when the very vessel of your being is constantly betraying you, crumbling piece by painful piece? What forgotten grief, what quiet, agonizing helplessness did Jesus witness in the slow, inevitable decline of the elders? Tears perhaps not for death itself, but for the profound spiritual silence born from a pervasive, unyielding physical suffering that stripped away independence, eroded comfort, and made the simple act of living a daily heroic struggle against the very bones that house the soul. The cold, unforgiving stone presses into your hip as you attempt to rest, its unyielding surface offering no give, no comfort, only a new point of dull, persistent ache. You feel the tremor in your frail frame, a subtle shaking that reverberates through your aged bones, a constant reminder of their brittleness. This world, built for the strong and agile, seems to actively resist any attempt at ease for those whose strength has waned. This isn't just physical discomfort. It's the forgotten truth of a relentless, unaccommodating reality, a pervasive spiritual tension in every hard edge and uneven surface. Your eyes, clouded by years, squint against the harsh Galilean sun, its relentless glare reflecting off the pale, dusty ground. There are no shaded, softly cushioned corners, no carefully constructed ramps, no smooth paths designed to ease your passage. Every step on the rough, uneven cobblestones or the loose, dusty earth is a deliberate calculation, a silent prayer against a stumble, a fall that could bring catastrophic consequence. You feel the strain in your knees, the deep, persistent ache in your ankles, a constant demand for vigilance that never truly lets your weary body rest. Even the familiar scent of baking bread seems distant, overshadowed by the sharper metallic tang of effort and unspoken pain. You watch a child, full of boundless energy, scamper effortlessly over a jagged rock, then disappear into a narrow alleyway. Their movements are fluid, unthinking, a stark, almost painful contrast to your own slow, deliberate shuffle, a perpetual negotiation with a world that was simply not made for you. The laughter of younger folk, clear and bright, often feels like a distant, alien sound, a joyful noise that doesn't quite penetrate the quiet, internal landscape of your own chronic discomfort. Your rough tunic, worn thin by time, offers little padding against the hard surfaces you constantly encounter, a fragile barrier against the world's unyielding nature. To sit, to rise, to simply exist in this environment requires a heroic, uncelebrated effort. You observe other elders, their faces etched with the same quiet endurance, their hands, gnarled and trembling, clutching staffs or leaning heavily on walls. There's a shared, unspoken understanding in their weary glances, a deep, pervasive spiritual silence that speaks of loneliness, of being overlooked, of a profound lack of gentle care in a world that prioritizes the productive, the youthful, the unburdened. The smallest tasks, reaching for a jug of water, picking up a dropped coin, ascending a single step, become monumental challenges, private crises fought in the dim recesses of aching muscles and brittle joints. This world, with its lack of soft places, its absence of accommodating gestures, creates a profound spiritual isolation. How does one truly find comfort in God's embrace when the physical world itself offers so little? What forgotten grief, what quiet, agonizing sorrow did Jesus witness in the silent struggles of the aged? Tears perhaps not for their impending death, but for the profound spiritual silence born from a pervasive, unyielding physical hardship that stripped them of their dignity, their ease, and their rightful place of gentle rest, in a world that simply had no room for weakness, for slowness, For the constant aching demand of weary bones? A raw, visceral roar erupts, sudden and overwhelming, ripping through the familiar hum of the Galilean afternoon. It's not the joyous shout of a festival, nor the urgent cry of a merchant. This is a sound born of deep, pent-up frustration and fiery collective passion, a wave of human voices swelling into a single, insistent, terrifying demand. You feel it vibrating through the very soles of your sandals, a physical tremor in the packed earth, a primal force that makes your blood quicken, your heart pound. This isn't just noise. It's the forgotten truth of a simmering anger, a profound spiritual tension that yearns for explosion, a violent reshaping of the very world around you. You are swept along by an unstoppable current of bodies, pressing in from all sides, their collective energy a tangible heat. The air, already thick with dust and sweat, now tastes metallic, almost electric, charged with the palpable excitement and barely contained rage of the throng. You feel the rough fabric of tunics brushing against your arms, the accidental shoves, the constant, jostling pressure that forces you forward, against your will or with it. Your feet stumble on the uneven ground, but there's no falling, only the insistent forward motion, carried by the sheer, unyielding force of the crowd. Ahead, a sea of faces contorted with a mixture of fervor, desperation, and defiant hope stretches as far as you can see. Eyes gleam with an almost manic intensity, fixed on some unseen point, some promised catalyst. Hands are raised, fists clenched, swaying rhythmically with the roar, embodying a collective will that feels terrifying in its unity. You catch glimpses of improvised banners, simple cloths tied to sticks, waving wildly above the heads. Their symbols a promise of change, of liberation, of a new, violently forged order. The sound is relentless, a continuous, deafening roar that swallows individual thoughts, replacing them with a singular, consuming purpose. It's a chant of defiance, a guttural demand for freedom, a cry for vengeance against unseen oppressors, an urgent call for a radical shift in the order of things. Individual words are lost, absorbed into the greater sound, but the asterisk meaning is unmistakable, visceral, pulsing with a raw, undeniable power. It's a profound spiritual silence, not of peace, but of a shared consciousness, a collective identity forged in the crucible of simmering rebellion, where individual doubt is silenced by the overwhelming force of shared passion. This isn't just a political movement. It's a spiritual yearning, a desperate hope for divine intervention, for a Messiah who will wield a sword, not just words. How does one preach a message of peace and quiet submission when the very air vibrates with such a potent, primal demand for swift, decisive action, for a revolution that promises to dismantle an unjust world by force? What forgotten grief, what quiet, agonizing sorrow did Jesus witness in the fervent, desperate eyes of a crowd demanding a violent upheaval? Tears, perhaps not for their misguided passion, but for the profound spiritual silence born from a pervasive, unyielding suffering that sought a quick, brutal end to their pain, rather than the slow, quiet transformation of the heart. What ultimate cost does this collective, righteous fury exact on the soul, leaving behind the echo of a revolution that always, inevitably consumes its own? A different kind of pressure descends, cold and insistent, not from a physical blow, but from the combined weight of 1,000 hopeful, demanding gazes. It settles on your shoulders, a heavy, invisible cloak, pressing down, making each breath feel shallow, each step a deliberate, almost burdened effort. You feel the palpable shift from the raw, unbridled roar of collective fury to a more focused, intense anticipation, an insistent current of yearning that now flows directly towards you, a forgotten truth about the crushing reality of being the vessel for a people's desperate, worldly dreams. The air, still thick with dust, and the lingering tang of restless energy, now hums with a focused, almost suffocating silence. It's punctuated not by shouts, but by sharp, eager whispers, by murmured prayers for salvation, by the desperate, hopeful pleas that ripple through the packed throng. You catch the sweet, earthy smell of bruised figs and trampled herbs from the marketplace, now overlaid with something sharper, almost metallic, the scent of a communal hunger that demands to be satisfied. Your rough sandals, accustomed to the familiar earth, now feel slow, almost heavy, rooted to a path that seems to narrow under the intensity of all these eyes. You see the faces of the people, no longer contorted in a general roar, but upturned, vivid and deeply earnest. Their eyes, wide and luminous, are fixed on you with an unnerving, singular intensity. They don't just see a man, they see a deliverer, a warrior, a king, a revolutionary who will finally break the Roman yoke, restore their ancient glory, and bring justice with a swift, decisive hand. You perceive the unshakable certainty in their expressions, the absolute conviction that you are the one to fulfill their vision, their prophecies, their earthly desires. Every line of their sun-baked faces, every subtle tremor of their lips speaks of a profound, unyielding expectation. Each movement you make, each subtle gesture, seems to be scrutinized, interpreted, held up against their towering hopes. There's no space for doubt, no room for a different path, no allowance for a quieter spiritual revolution. The clamor of their unspoken demands is louder than any shout, a ceaseless internal din that threatens to drown out any other thought, any gentle whisper of a different truth. You feel the subtle push and pull of their collective will, a powerful, almost physical force that attempts to shape your very being, to fit you into the mold of their worldly needs. This isn't just external pressure. It's a profound spiritual crisis, a battle for the very soul of purpose. How does one speak of a kingdom not of this world, of a love that transcends earthly power, when the people thirst so desperately for a tangible physical liberation, a political leader, a visible throne? What forgotten grief, what quiet agonizing sorrow did Jesus witness in the fervent, demanding eyes of a people so utterly consumed by worldly expectations, tears perhaps not for their suffering, but for the profound spiritual silence born from a pervasive, unyielding misunderstanding of his true mission, a silence that drowned out the quiet truths of the heart with the deafening clamor of human desire, leaving him burdened by a love that could not be grasped? A profound, suffocating chill seeps into your very bones, an alien coldness that penetrates the rough fabric of your tunic and settles deep in your chest. It's not the bracing chill of a winter morning, but a damp, heavy cold, laden with the metallic tang of ancient rock and the sweet, earthy scent of decay, a profound aroma of finality. You feel it immediately upon entering the narrow opening, a sudden, shocking drop in temperature that steals your breath and raises goosebumps on your skin. This isn't just a chamber. It's a portal to an absolute unyielding silence, a forgotten truth about the visceral reality of death's cold embrace. Your eyes, accustomed to the bright Galilean sun, struggle to adjust to the oppressive gloom within the stone tomb. The darkness is absolute, a tangible presence that presses in, swallowing all form, all color, all familiar comfort. Your hand, outstretched, brushes against rough, damp stone, cold and unyielding, covered in a fine, gritty dust that clings to your fingertips, a silent testament to countless generations interred. Your sandals scuff softly on the uneven rock floor, the sound muffled, absorbed by the heavy quiet, a startling intrusion in this realm of absolute stillness. The silence here is not peaceful. It's a profound, spiritual silence, heavy and complete, devoid of even the faintest whisper of wind or the distant chirping of crickets. It presses in on your ears, amplifying the sound of your own beating heart, the shallow rasp of your own breathing. It feels like the very air has grown dense, still, heavy with the weight of departed souls, with the raw, unspoken grief that lingers here, a profound quiet that demands reverence, yet evokes a deep, unsettling fear. You see the dark, irregular openings carved into the walls, the rock-cut burial niches, each one a silent, gaping maw. A subtle, acrid scent of embalming spices, faintly sweet and resinous, mingles with the damp earth. A fragile human attempt to ward off the inevitable decay. Your gaze drifts towards a shrouded form on one of the shelves, indistinct in the deep gloom, but unmistakably human. A shiver runs through your spine, a cold knot forming in your gut as you confront the stark, inescapable finality of this place, the ultimate boundary. You feel a profound sense of powerlessness, a crushing awareness of the limits of life, of love, of all earthly endeavor in the face of this absolute silence. This isn't just a place of rest. It's a stark revelation, a confrontation with the ultimate unknown. How does one truly find solace? How does one speak of resurrection and eternal life when the physical reality of death's cold, damp embrace is so overwhelmingly, terrifyingly present? What forgotten grief, what quiet, agonizing despair did Jesus witness in the profound spiritual silence of the tomb? Tears perhaps not for death alone, but for the universal human terror of this ultimate separation, this chilling void that swallows all sound, all light, all hope, leaving only the damp, cold truth of stone and bone. The silence in this tomb isn't merely the absence of sound. It's a palpable presence, a thick, heavy blanket that presses down on your eardrums, creating an internal hum that vibrates through your very skull. This isn't the peaceful quiet of contemplation, nor the serene stillness of nature at rest. This is a profound, unyielding quiet that swallows every faint rustle, every soft scuff, every human breath, leaving behind a terrifying void. You feel it as a physical pressure, a cold, heavy weight that settles in your chest, making your own heart's frantic beat feel like a desperate, isolated drum in an infinite, empty space. This is the forgotten truth, that silence can be a crisis, an active force of desolation. You strain your ears, desperate for anything to break this crushing quiet, a distant drip of water, a scurry of unseen creatures, even the whisper of the wind outside. But there is nothing. Only this absolute, unwavering stillness, a profound vacuum that feels both suffocating and boundless. The air, already damp and cold, seems to grow heavier, colder still, carrying the faint, sweet scent of decay and ancient stone. an aroma that speaks of finality, of an ending beyond words. Your rough tunic, already chilling against your skin, now feels like a thin barrier against this invading emptiness, this chilling absence of sound and life. Your eyes, still struggling in the deep gloom, perceive only the barest outlines of the rock-hewn chamber, the dark, gaping mouths of the burial niches. The flickering light of a single small oil lamp, brought reluctantly into this domain of darkness, seems only to emphasize the immensity of the shadows it cannot penetrate, making them dance and writhe at the periphery, taking on unsettling, indistinct forms. Every object, every surface, every stone seems to hold its breath, contributing to this oppressive quiet, this profound spiritual silence that offers no solace, no comfort, only a stark, unyielding confrontation with itself. You glance at the figures huddled beside you, their faces pale and drawn in the meager light. Their lips are pressed tightly, their eyes wide and strained, reflecting the same terror, the same desperate search for an answer in the vast quiet. No one speaks, no one moves. Their very stillness is a testament to the power of this silence, a collective surrender to its overwhelming grip. It's a silence that screams of unanswered prayers, of divine absence, of a chasm that no human voice dares to cross, lest it be swallowed, utterly, irrevocably. This profound, unsettling silence is not a place of rest, but a crucible where the spirit is tested, where hope struggles to find a voice. How does one truly find God in such an absolute void, when the very universe seems to hold its breath, offering no comfort, no guidance, no whisper of divine presence? What forgotten grief, what quiet, agonizing doubt did Jesus witness in the faces of those grappling with this terrifying, non-peaceful silence of death? Tears perhaps not for the physical loss, but for the profound spiritual burden, the crushing weight of that terrible, unanswered quiet that seemed to swallow even God himself.